to call to order the Tuesday, August 13th, 2019, Town of Rockport Board of Selectmen's meeting. If everyone could please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance and moment of silence. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, it's so nice to see some new and old faces in the crowd this evening. First on the agenda, we have public comment period. Toby? And I think it's green. The microphone looks green to me. Yeah.
Toby Arsenian, 95 Granite Street. Perhaps a month ago, I spoke about the Long Beach parking spaces, which the DPW wanted to put by the tennis court, and the Conservation Commission ruled against that, and then the DPW appealed it to the state, to the DEP. Your board had some discussion of the matter, and afterwards I asked your board if we could have a proper explanation of it from both parties, from the DPW and from the Conservation Commission, but you felt that was not appropriate. I think that was an unfortunate decision.
Well, hold on.
It's a matter of
let me just interrupt you for 1 second. We actually, at that moment, you said that, we stopped what we were talking about and gave a full recap of the situation and said that we would be in touch as soon as we heard back from DEP. So we did discuss the situation.
I felt it was not a proper accounting. And later I heard about the final disposition of the matter by chance talking to Mr. Vieira. Apparently the state ruled in favor of the Conservation Commission and upholding their rejection of the permit. And that was never brought out publicly here. And you talk about transparency, but it seems to me that that's a matter of some concern for the public one way or another, whether you're concerned for the environment or whether you're concerned for parking for the tennis courts. And that's a failing and something you would wish to avoid in the future, to do better.
Toby, that actually, we got word from the DEP. I think it was on the table at like we saw it after our meeting the last time. And so it was going to come up under updates this evening. And it was, that's it, so.
So I scooped you on it.
You've what?
Scooped you on it.
I don't know what that means, but we were going to mention it tonight. Oh, sorry.
You got us.
But we were going to mention it tonight, which was
us.
our next meeting. So, sure.
Yes, Patricia Pierce, 35 Broadway. An update on the Seabrook reactor. I've learned that in the last 10 years, the concrete in the reactor has developed a chemical reaction called ASR, alkali silica reaction. It's an irreversible, progressive degradation of the concrete, and the interaction between the alkali and the silicon creates a gel which expands, and it causes micro cracks and then macro cracks, bigger cracks, in below-grade walls. Below-grade walls are foundations. This has been going on for quite a while now, and the structure is, they've permitted it for through 50 years, through another 20, 25 years. And the reinforcing in the structure there is horizontal. There is no vertical reinforcing steel. So the horizontal bars are only bound by layers of thin concrete, which is degrading. So I think it's a real problem. Not only is it discharging every operating day to the air and ocean, which is coming here and everywhere the wind goes, it is also crumbling. It's going to be there for hundreds of years, contaminated, radiating our whole countryside, not just here, but everywhere. I really think you ought to begin a discussion of what to do about the reactor. It's already causing damage. It's literally crumbling. And I think it's worthy of meeting, of discussion, of committee, some response to that. So I hope you'll consider that.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else for public comment? No? Okay. At this time, we're going to move on to a long overdue but not forgotten resolution of appreciation for Lars-Erik Wiberg. Welcome. Nice to see you. Somebody actually messaged me that sometimes it's the quietest but hardest working volunteers that it takes us the longest to kind of recognize and almost forget that they're not working with us anymore. And I have this very nice resolution, but what I think is amazing is that we have several members, current and former members of the Board of Appeals here this evening joining us. Alan, I know Alan's a current chair. Would you like to maybe...
Sheedy's a former member.
Yep.
Nick Reese, who's a former member now. David just served 10 years. Then we got Fred Frisson, who's on the board. Bill Christopher on the board, working. And myself.
Who else? Anyone else hiding? But that's such a nice testament, obviously, to Lars's years of service to the town. So, Lars, would you mind coming up and joining us at the front? And we could maybe stand.
Yeah.
I will tell you, I probably learned more reading this resolution than I have in a long time. It's absolutely amazing. Why don't you stand right there so that they can...
stand or have a seat?
Or you could, why don't you have a seat, actually? Perfect.
Sit or stand?
There we go. And as we say, we want the TV cameras to get a good shot for the millions of of residents watching
over
from
there.
home. So they'll get a good shot of you. And I will read this on behalf of the board. It's Resolution of Appreciation for Lars-Erik Wiberg. Whereas Lars-Erik Wiberg, along with his wife Betty, made Rockport their permanent home in 1958, and whereas Lars, wanting to serve the town, volunteered for a traffic study committee where he met John Kren and Ted Tarr and served for 3 years. And you can correct any of this if it's wrong. And whereas Lars served 7 years on Rockport's planning board, again with Kren and Tarr, Lars stepped in after the entire planning board quit because town meeting rejected their master plan. Some things never change in town, it seems. And whereas Lars and the new board took on the daunting task of addressing much-needed overall town zoning for the general district and the North Village, and whereas, after taking a little time off from town affairs, Lars responded to a call from Nick Barletta in 1986, asking if he would consider a position on the Board of Appeals. That's where it ended, right? And whereas Lars served a staggering 31 years and retired from the Board of Appeals in 2017, and whose written decisions were precise and poetic in style and displayed an extraordinary command of language. Whereas the citizens of Rockport wish to thank Lars and his family for 43 years of service to our town. Be it resolved that we, the members of the Board of Selectmen of the town of Rockport, Massachusetts, on this 13th day of August 2019, do hereby adopt this resolution of appreciation in honor of Lars-Erik Wiberg on behalf of all of the citizens of Rockport, and that a copy of this resolution be kept a part of our records. Signed, Sarah J. Wilkinson, Donald J. Campbell, Paul F. Murphy, Denise Donnelly, and Ruth C. George.
Congratulations, sir.
Congratulations. Thank you, Lars.
Ex-member. Recognition well deserved. Thank you for that, thank you. Yeah.
We'll take just a 1 minute break in case you don't want to. Inn located at 1 King Street. And joining us this evening to discuss this matter, we have Janelle Austin from KP Law, who's the town's counsel. We have Police Chief John Horvath and Assistant Chief Mark Schmink, and then obviously Town Administrator Mitch Vieira. Town Council has asked me to read the notice that was provided to the PEG leg, and then I will turn it over to Town Council to facilitate the hearing.
Can't really hear.
Oh, sure. Can you, there we go. Is that better? Okay, great. So at this point, I will read into the record the notice that was sent on August 7th by hand, by certified mail, return receipt requested, number 7015-064-00004-5268-7760, by first class mail and by electronic mail, to Mr. Michael R. Welcome, President, and Mr. Robert J. Welcome, M.R. Welcome Incorporated, 1 King Street, Rockport, Mass. 01966, regarding the innkeeper's license for the Peg Leg Inn. Notice of hearing. Dear Messrs. Welcome, on August 13th, 2019, at 6:45 p.m., the Rockport Board of Selectmen will hold a hearing pursuant to General Law, Chapter 140, Sections 9 and 30, to review your innkeeper's license, 09-10. The hearing will be held at Town Hall in Conference Room A, 34 Broadway, Rockport, Mass. The hearing will concern the August 4th, 2019 and August 5th, 2019 police investigations, as well as incident reports and statements filed by and provided to the Rockport Police Department, true and accurate copies of which are enclosed. The enclosed records describe recent events and behavior at the Peg Leg Inn when customers were staying at the premises, including but not limited to ongoing criminal investigations, criminal allegations involving Micah Welcome, pending criminal charges involving Micah Welcome, allegations of improper and inappropriate conduct toward staff by Micah Welcome, reports of Micah Welcome's intoxication at the premises, as well as allegations that alcohol has been placed in beverages for guests to consume. You may attend this hearing and be represented by counsel at your own expense if you wish. The purpose of this hearing is to review the allegations documented in the enclosed records and certain provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 140. These allegations, if proven, would constitute grounds for disciplinary action, including a written warning, suspension, or revocation of your license. If you have any questions, please contact this office. Sincerely, Mitchell R. Vieira, Town Administrator, and copied were the Board of Selectmen and the Chief of Police. So at this point, I'll turn it over to you, Janelle, and you'll kind of walk us through the hearing
Sure.
process.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me?
She can turn it up as you talk if she
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Everyone in the back. My name is Janelle Austin. I'm an attorney at KP Law, and I will facilitate the hearing this evening on behalf of the board. Essentially, we're here for an evidentiary hearing with respect to the innkeeper's license for Peg Leg Inn. A notice has been read into the record for notice of the hearing. Are representatives from the Peg Leg Inn here this evening? Would you like to sit over there? Would that be easier?
Becca, can you turn Janelle's microphone up a little? Thanks. Great.
Thank you. Thank you. Before we get started for the hearing, I just want to outline some of the ground rules. Testimony this evening will be limited to the issues directly related to the subject matter, that is the status of the innkeeper's license for the Peg Leg Inn. Only one person will be permitted to speak at a time. There will be no argument between the parties, and all discussions will either go through me as the facilitator or through the chair. All parties will be expected to conduct themselves civilly, and arguments between the parties, as noted, would not be permitted. This is being recorded for purposes of evidentiary value, and minutes will be kept of this meeting as well. Can you please identify the representatives from Peg Leg Inn, just for the record, with your name and your address, please?
I'm attorney Harold Rush Lloyd for Michael Welcome.
Michael Welcome.
And your address, please, Mr.
King
Welcome?
Street, Rockport, Mass.
Thank you.
Robert H. Welcome, 7 Straitsmith Way.
Thank you. We're going to proceed this evening with some information from the police representatives here this evening. After that, certainly representatives from Peg Leg Inn will have the opportunity to question the police officers or also present any evidence that they would like to the board as it reviews the status of the innkeeper's license. At this time, I'm going to turn the matter over to the police chief for his testimony to the board. And then if you have any questions, you can certainly ask the police chief at this time. Chief.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, board members. The location that we're here to speak about this evening is the Peg Leg Inn, 1 King Street, Rockport, Massachusetts. Has been the site of numerous police responses to citizen calls for service over the years. I'd say dozens, if not more, over the years. These have really risen to a serious nature both on August 4th and August 5th of 2019, necessitating a police response that required both intervention and subsequently enforcement, resulting in criminal charges for Mr. Michael Welcome. The incidents taking place there, as summarized by Chairperson Wilkinson, involve intoxication. These matters have affected employees there and have taken, some have alleged to have been taking place in front of patrons of the Peg Leg Inn. And to me, certainly presents a public health and a public safety concern for this community. So as the police chief, I felt it incumbent upon myself to bring the forward and the matter to the town administrator for review by the Board of Selectmen and consideration of the license of that location for public health and public safety reasons. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone may have.
Are there any questions from the Peg Leg Inn representatives?
Yes, I do have one or two, if I might. In the correspondence that was sent to Mr. Welcome, these involve allegations only, is that correct?
There's a pending criminal court case at Gloucester District Court for criminal charges pending against Michael Welcome.
All right, and the correspondence sent to Mr. Welcome indicates ongoing criminal investigation, is that correct?
There's a case pending in Gloucester District Court for Michael Welcome with criminal charges issued.
So it's an ongoing criminal investigation, meaning it hasn't been completed, is that correct?
Our investigation is completed and it sits with Gloucester District Court, the district attorney's office.
So the information that's contained in the correspondence to Mr. Welcome is incorrect?
I don't know what correspondence
It says
you're referring to, sir.
ongoing criminal investigation, which would suggest that it's ongoing, hasn't been completed.
I don't know what correspondence you're speaking of, sir.
It's the correspondence that was read into the record at the beginning of the hearing.
To respond to your question, the case has been put forward to the district attorney's office in Gloucester District Court. There are criminal charges issued for Michael R. Welcome. The next court date, September 16, 2019, 9 a.m.
All right, so these involve allegations of disgruntled employees?
No.
Can you tell me how many guests have stayed at the inn this season?
No, I cannot.
A rough idea?
I believe there's 12 rooms. I have no idea. You'd have to ask one of your clients.
Have you received any complaints at all from any guests this year or even last year?
I don't know.
You don't know. Isn't that an important piece of information for somebody who has a license to run an inn?
Not based on the recent occurrences of August 4th and August 5th.
Those are allegations, correct?
Those were incidents that we responded to of a significant nature that resulted in criminal charges.
And in order to have criminal charges issued, what's the standard to have those issued?
Probable cause.
Right. That's not beyond a reasonable doubt, is it?
It's probable cause.
And there's a presumption of innocence, isn't that true?
That's why it sits with Gloucester District Court.
Okay. Thank you, nothing further.
Just a couple of follow-up questions for the chief, please. And we can share the microphone. Chief, have you received any prior complaints prior to August 4th and August 5th of this year relative to the Peg Leg Inn from either employees or any other individuals?
Yes, I've stated the Peg Leg Inn has been the scene and location of numerous calls to the police department, numerous police responses over the years, dozens, if not more.
And Chief, based on your training and experience, why did you bring this forward to the board at this time?
It's an escalation of concerning activity and behaviors that have affected employees of that location, as well as alleged to have taken place in front of patrons. And it's certainly my duty as a public servant to bring this information to the board for consideration, since a license has been issued for that location.
Thank you, Chief. Any further questions?
Just with respect to the prior incidents that you've made some reference to, do we have any documentation to support that at this point? Did you bring anything?
There's voluminous documents within the Rockport Police Department that would be responsive to what you're saying, yes.
Right, but
I've seen them.
We don't have them here, though, is what you're saying.
I don't have them with me, no.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Chief, one follow-up question. As the Chief of Police for the Rockport Police Department, are you personally familiar with those incidents? And did you review them prior to coming to the hearing this evening?
Yes, I did. I didn't read each one verbatim, because literally there's probably hundreds of pages of documents regarding calls, as well as police reports pertaining to that location.
Anything further, sir?
You had an opportunity to review the documents, Chief? That you've just made reference to?
As I stated, I didn't read each document verbatim, but I did scan the package of documents, which was, as I said, voluminous in nature.
Right, but you don't have them here, so we don't have the opportunity to review them, correct?
That's correct, I don't have them here.
Nothing further.
At this time, I would like to turn the hearing over to Assistant Chief Schmink, please. Assistant Chief, can you provide an overview to the board with respect to your personal knowledge of the recent events related to the Peg Leg Inn?
Yes. Good evening. On August 5th, in the morning, between 10 and 10:30, I was out in an unmarked patrol car on patrol, and I had heard over the radio a call for service to the Peg Leg Inn. The innkeeper was upset, and there was an employee walkout and to check on the status. I was aware of the previous incident the night before, or the day before, 4th, that resulted in a previous police investigation at that address with that individual. And I had had previous dealings with the individual and the location, so I felt it was probably a good idea for me to go myself. I would be able to de-escalate the situation and resolve it and see what was going on. So I did respond to that location. It was heavily crowded area. There were people at the restaurant next door at Nate's. There was people walking down the sidewalk on the beach. I went in the front doors. There were patrons checking in, patrons checking out. There were people in the restaurant area, and I had to be directed to where the two police officers were questioning Mr. Michael Welcome in the back area, little office area. He had his back turned to the officers. I could smell, a strong odor of alcohol, alcoholic beverage, and the officers speaking with him. He was uncooperative. I stepped in. I felt it was in the best interest of the public at that point in time to remove him from the premises. He was subsequently removed from the premises, transported up to the police station, where we followed up with a police investigation, and that resulted in additional criminal charges.
Assistant Chief, have copies of those reports been provided to Mr. Welcome as well as to the board?
Yes, I believe attached with the original notice, the copies of the 4th and 5th, the incident on the 4th and the incident on the 5th were provided submitted for their review.
And in your opinion, are those true and accurate copies of the police reports detailing the police department's response to the incidents that recently occurred?
Yes, they are.
Sir, do you have any questions?
Just very briefly, Assistant Chief Schmink, you indicated that you could smell alcohol?
Yes.
All right. The odor of alcohol doesn't tell you exactly what anyone has had to drink. Is that correct?
Correct.
It doesn't tell you when they had it.
I would say it would be recent based upon my 26 years of training and experience and education.
And it doesn't necessarily tell you how much they've had, just that they've had something, correct?
I would take the totality of the circumstances into consideration based upon my observations, the individual's responses, and the smell and actions.
But the original information you gave when you were making your statement was that it was the odor of alcohol, correct?
Yep, the statement I'm making was in regard to a summary, which is a broad brush overview of what occurred at that time, not an articulate, in-depth accounting of what
It's not an
occurred.
offense to consume alcohol, is it?
What's that?
Not an offense to consume alcohol, is it?
No.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Council, put the microphone, we're having difficulty.
My apologies, sorry.
That's okay, thank you.
Do the board members have any questions for the police witnesses at this time? At this time, is there anything that the town administrator would like to add, and then we'll turn it over to the license holder for further discussion?
Until the license holder makes their statement.
Okay. Is there any evidence or any documentation or materials that Peg Leg would like to present to the board as part of this review of the license?
I don't believe there are any documents, but I do believe there are statements.
Okay, sure.
So,
Anything you'd like to present to the board, either Mr. Welcome?
Which one did your father do first? All right, go ahead.
First, I'd like to thank the board, the opportunity, thank you, the opportunity to read this statement. The allegations set forth in the various police reports and documents are specifically denied in their entirety. I would like to say that my family moved to Rockport in 1971, and my parents purchased the Peg Leg Inn and Restaurant in 1974. The Peg Leg Inn has been part of my life since the age of 7, and I started working in the restaurant at the age of 10. I am very fortunate and grateful for over the 4 decades in the Rockport community. Over the 45 years, my parents, and now me, for the last 19 years, have employed many Rockporters and served thousands of guests at the Peg Leg. Over the years, I believe I have done many positive things for our community, including being a member of the Cape Ann Chamber of Commerce, past member of the Rockport Board of Trade, Inns of Rockport, Rotary Club, Friends of Rockport Athletics, coaching Rockport High School hockey, founded the Friends of Rockport Athletics Golf Tournament fundraiser, hosting many fundraisers at the Peg Leg Inn, including ham and bean suppers, French toast breakfast, parking and power for many events like the Children's Library readings in the Millbrook Park, duck races, garden club, Millbrook Meadow Committee, Easter egg hunt, and the like. Countless donations and local charities and organizations. My parking lot has become the second DPW lot. From mowing lawns, picking up trash, it's not uncommon to see 3 or 4 trucks with trailers in the lot on any given day. Over the past 6 years, I've made arrangements with private contractors access through the lot for the building of the new dam, the first and second phases of the Millbrook Meadow project, which is finally completed. I believe these projects would have been far more costly in time and money for the town of Rockport without my willingness to be involved. In closing, I would be grateful for the opportunity to continue employing and serving the people of our community as well as guests from around the world. Thank you for your consideration.
Do any members of the board have any specific questions regarding that statement? Mr. Welcome, is there anything through your counsel that you would like to add?
Yes, ma'am. I actually sent copies to the selectmen of my statements, of this statement, and I thought it might be a good idea to get it out to everybody.
We did receive it as well. We all.
Yes, as I said.
Yeah,
I
so
sent
you
it
know
to
we
your
all did
selectmen.
get it. Great.
But I'm just want to say that in writing this letter, Peg Leg is scheduled to close October 21st for the season. And the business and property is also up for sale at this time. Okay? I thank you for the opportunity to express our thoughts, ideas prior to the meeting. Since this is a public meeting, we cannot comment on specific legal issues, that's been done, but we're not going to comment on. A few reasons for keeping the inn open for the remainder of the season is: 1, the employees will be hurt financially. There are 12 employees who are counting on these wages they expected to earn to the closing date. This also lowers the amount they will get from claims filed with the Massachusetts Unemployment Bureau. This is common in a seasonal business. This is not a roost or anything like that. It's just the nature of the area, you know. So that would definitely affect what's happening when. There are also many guests that have made advance reservations for the coming period. At this late date, many will not be able to get reservations, especially weekends and holidays. The loss of revenue not only affects the inn, but also the town in collecting 6.7% lodging tax. Putting the financial aspects aside, Michael, over the 17 years of ownership, has contributed to the town and community. Just to name a few, the Department of Public Works has enjoyed free access through the lot to service the park on a daily basis. With the latest project, they firmed up a passageway to the park from the parking lot without asking. We wouldn't have objected anyways, but it would have been nicer they given us the respect. Okay? To do this, the Meadow Committee and the Garden Club members have been allowed to park free whenever needed. He appreciates their good work. He sees that, and he cooperates. Michael has been cooperating with the Meadow Committee to eliminate various invasive plants. All you got to do is talk to Laura over there, and you know she's chasing invasive plants, both in the park and in the parking lot property. Has supported many organizations with allowing the use of the parking lot and also with financial gifts. Played a major part in the cooperation with aiding the completion of the Meadow project with little or no compensation. For Peg Leg, the project lasted longer than planned, got into our season, or into his season, I think it was, what, the third week of June? Before they finally got their trucks out? Friends of Rockport Athletic Golf Tournament was the brainchild of Michael many years ago. And with the help of Peter Schmink, it is still being played and has earned many thousands of dollars worth of funds. But no, he didn't get anything from it. What he got was satisfaction. So, Michael has been accepted at AGH Discoverer program. I don't know if you know what that is. Okay, a 2-week, 10-day intense program to help with decisions to help with the difficult disease of alcoholism. It also provides, after that, ongoing counseling. It's a wonderful program, and it's a real cap in the hat of Cape Ann to have this program here. Alcohol is a disease. Cancer is a disease. One is acceptable publicly, one is not. And it makes sense. You've got to be in control of your thing. But it's not something that people want to do or have, but they have to deal with it. Over the years, I've seen Michael battle off and on and have wonderful, wonderful times. Good long stretches, and I thought I died and went to heaven when this happened. But it's one of those things. It's just an ongoing battle, and I hate to say it, but once you're an alcoholic, you're always an alcoholic. Doesn't mean you have to drink. You can be a dry alcoholic. Mm-hmm. And I'm willing to bet the number of people here have some loved ones or friends are affected by the same damn thing, and you know what I'm talking about. As to his employees, just this year, I don't hear it all, but this year he spent $200 to get one of his employees' car fixed out of his pocket. And another thing, he lent $2,000 to another person who is paying it over the 10 or 20 weeks that the inn is open. So he's not taking the money and run. He's got a heart, and he cares. I think you'd be doing a disservice. Oh, number one, I'm sorry. I got to apologize. I did not do a good job this year. I'm the innkeeper. I'm the one that's the manager, and I didn't step up. We had two big things there. Made it difficult for me to do. One was the fact that we had some medical issues at home with my wife, but also I'm getting older, and I've missed a step or two. One of these things that's important is that guy over there in the red shirt. He stepped up. That's Gary Lucas. And there are a lot of good employees, good people over there. And Gary has stepped up and been very helpful to Michael and to myself, trying to keep the situation under control. Michael is, as you know, is out on bail. I don't know how he did it. I didn't, but somebody did. And being in, as you know, Chief, he has restrictions on him. One is a breathalyzer. I think he has to blow 3 or 4 times, just like you have in your car, or some people have in their car. You have to blow it 3 or 4 times. I don't know exactly how many times, okay? That eliminates the ability to get alcohol into your system. And also has a GPS just to trace where he is at all times. He's not restricted to 1 King Street, but he does have a GPS. And wherever they want him, if the chief wants him, he just calls the outfit and they say, okay, he's on Smith Street, he's on Statesmith Way, or something like that. So he has controls to get through these next 10 weeks. He's a wonderful young man, and he works real hard. He's got a big heart. He's honest, and I think I know this is strike 2. Mr. Vieira was very clear on that. Strike 2. Well, it is strike 2. Okay? And let's give him another swing at the bat. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Welcome. Just a couple of follow-up questions, if I may. For the record, who currently holds the license for Peg Leg Inn? Who's the license holder?
I think I am, aren't I? Yes. It's in my, I'm licensed manager. I think the corporate name is MR Welcome Inc. Mr.
And, sir, do you know who the president of MR Welcome Inc. is currently?
I am.
Yes.
Your son, Michael Welcome?
Yes.
Okay. And where does Michael Welcome currently reside?
At rear 1 King Street.
Is that on the premises?
It's
of
a
the
separate
Peg-
building.
On the same premises?
On the same lot, yes. There used to be a greenhouse there before you were in the neighborhood.
Okay. I have no further questions at this time. I would defer to the board, or I know that the town administrator would like to add something as well. Do any of the board members have any question? And then the chief can respond to anything as necessary as well.
I have one question, and that is, Mr. Welcome, you did say that you're the current license holder or manager,
Yes, ma'am.
and who held it previously?
Michael did.
Okay. And why did it change then?
Because of his first
Changing quarry routes.
change in the quarry rules.
Oh, okay.
Related to,
Okay, so he couldn't hold it because of the quarry?
yes, ma'am.
But and it went to you?
Yes, ma'am.
And but Michael is still there managing it, but it's in your name?
I manage a little bit, and Gary manages it, and Michael, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Chief, is there anything in particular, or Assistant Chief, that you'd like to respond to? Okay. Is there anything that the town administrator would like to add?
If the board is ready, I would offer a recommendation on this. So looking at the totality of the circumstances, taking into account what the police department has presented, the facts that are here this evening, what MR Welcome Inc. and their representatives have presented, to me, there's certainly an escalation of matters in this particular case, based on what's before the board. And the paramount concern, from my perspective with the town, is the public health and safety of the community and of the individuals who are attending this, going to this facility and utilizing this facility. And the board certainly is here to make a determination on the suitability of a license holder. And based on those items that I just mentioned to you, I believe that MR Welcome Inc. is no longer suitable to hold an innkeeper's license for the town of Rockport. So my recommendation to you this evening would be to consider revocation of the innkeeper's license effective 10 calendar days from this hearing.
Is there any other evidence or materials that Peg Leg would like to submit to the board before the hearing portion is closed and the board deliberates on it?
Just a reminder that these are allegations. None of them have been proven in court. And as far as I know, there have been no guest complaints at all to address the town administrator's concern.
with that being said, if there's nothing further, at this point, we would close the hearing portion and the board, unless there's something
We can
else.
discuss that after it closes.
Yes, we're going to close as long as there's nothing else that anyone would like to submit. We're going to close the hearing, and then the board can consider and deliberate on the pending license matter.
It looks like there's
I don't know if that's a witness or a representative that's being brought, but
I don't
it
know.
seems to me that Peg Leg is not submitting anything further, correct?
Nothing further.
At-
Gary?
Let's go.
Do you want him to say something?
Do you want to say something, Gary?
Well, he's an employee of the inn. Evidently, he would like to say something.
Hi, Gary Lucas, 5 Hooper Court, Rockport. I help manage the inn when Bob's not there. I hope the board has some compassion for the employees. There's 12 of us. It's only a couple more months to run it until then the inn's for sale. I've already gone through this with the town. I was disabled from the town, worked for the town for 24 years. Not one official from the town said, thank you for your service. So I'm wondering if there's any compassion, because, being disabled for life, getting 0, and no thank you at all, that's kind of hard. Now it's happening again.
Mr. Lucas, I would just remind you of, with no disrespect whatsoever, the ground rules that we're here just to discuss the underlying innkeeper's license, and that's the scope of this hearing.
I'm talking about compassion, which I'm hoping that this board of selectmen will have a little compassion for the 12 employees that are really dependent on it. 5 of them, 6 of them are college kids. And that's where they get their money to get through college. Thank you.
May I say something?
Sure.
I just want to remind the board that Michael is completely wrapped up in his ability to have a drink between now and a court date, whenever that happens, because of the restrictions, the equipment that the court has put on him for this bail. So if he's not going to make any moves that are going to affect this place for the next 2 months. It's impossible.
I might be able to add something to that if the board would like to hear it. It is quite correct that the justice over at Gloucester District Court did put severe restrictions on Michael's abilities. No drugs, no alcohol, he's subject to screens. He has an at-home intoxilizer device, and he's restricted, nor can he be abusive to any patrons or employees. If he were to violate any of those conditions of release, I think I can assure you that he would find himself in custody very, very quickly. So there are significant restraints in his abilities to go off the rails, shall we say, exactly as Bob pointed out to the board. I'd ask you to take that into account.
I can tell you, if I may, I can also tell you it works. Saturday night, Michael's GPS broke down, right? It broke down, was not working properly. He called, I guess they have different police departments have the duty. He called where he had to call, Elmo they call it, and they referred to him. They said, well, what's going on? He told them. My suggestion was go to the police department and get some help from them to verify that he was fine and everything. But they wouldn't allow that. What they said is, you had to get in your car and get to Quincy in 2 hours. So, my point only for making this is, the clamps are on real tight. There's no room, no wiggle room here. And I want to bring that up because basically, again, we're talking about 60 or 70 days.
Thank you. Anything further?
Nothing further, thank you.
Thank you. We're closing the public hearing portion of tonight's meeting with respect to the innkeeper's license for Peg Leg Inn. At this time, I would remind the board that the board's jurisdiction is with respect to the innkeeper's license. Clearly, whether Peg Leg Inn remains a suitable person to hold that license. This is not part of the criminal case, as the board is well aware, and certainly doesn't involve any private matters that may be the subject of Peg Leg's business. And the board's jurisdiction essentially is under the Chapter 140, whether the license holder, in this case Peg Leg Inn, should continue to hold that innkeeper's license, which is the statutory right under General Laws, Chapter 140. With that being said, the town administrator has made a recommendation, and the board is, at this time, can deliberate regarding that or any other matters with respect to the information that it's considered this evening.
Sure.
So, what are the standards by which the board grants these licenses?
Pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 140, an individual who obtains an innkeeper's license needs to be a suitable individual, which is the board's discretion as the licensing authority, whether it's in the best interest of public safety and public health to have that license, and whether whether it meets the town's needs and whether it's within the scope of public safety for members of the public for that particular license. In this case, it would be the innkeeper's license.
If Mr. Welcome, if the license was allowed to continue, would Mr. Welcome be the manager and also live on premises as well for the next 20 days or whenever the October 21st, 60, till October 21st?
Are you talking this, Mr. Welcome?
Whoever would like to answer it.
I live in the back, of the inn, yes.
So you'd continue to live there?
Well, it's my home.
Okay. Would you also continue to manage the inn?
I'm out with my father and Gary.
So you
I
would continue?
I would work there, yes.
Okay.
I'm kind of a key man in regards to a lot of the ordering and as far as the bookkeeping and that type of thing. So it's kind of a key man when it comes to that.
I'll just add this. I know this isn't easy. This isn't easy for you. This isn't easy for the board. This isn't easy for the town. There is compassion from this board. There is compassion from the people in this town. What we need to take into consideration of the totality of circumstances and whether we see a way to have this be a peaceful ending on October 21st, should that be.
I'd be grateful if you do that.
I understand that. And we've been given quite a bit of information that I've read probably 2 or 3 times that points in a certain direction. So far, I haven't been persuaded that that direction is to allow the inn to remain open. I apologize for that. That's not done out of any malice. It's done out of the facts that are presented in front of me solely. So with that, you have my absolute sympathy for your condition. I wish you, Mr. Welcome, you said it earlier, that everybody has somebody in a family that has been affected by this horrendous disease. My family is no exception to that. So I'm very sympathetic to that, and I wish a speedy recovery and a sustained recovery more than anything. And with that, I'll go to.
Excuse me for 1 second.
Please.
If I was to remove myself from the operation, would that have bearing?
That's not my sole decision to make. I don't know if the board could be assured or
I think we would have to defer to the
exactly.
police chief on that.
So I think that's where we
On
would
what-
have to go.
On what, if there
On
are
what-
conditions?
Right.
Maybe we might want to continue with a few comments
Is that-
and
Sure.
discuss that.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
that's a good place if you want to continue with your comments, and then we can
Sure.
address any
Then we can
specific
address that?
issues through the
Sure.
police
I think
chief.
that makes sense.
Good.
Denise?
Yeah, I was just going to say that my family too is affected by alcoholism, so I too have deep compassion for the illness. But our job is to make a decision based on the best interests of the town. And I hope you understand that. We're not lacking in compassion. And everything that you, Michael, said and you, Bob, said about all the things that you as individuals and the business have done for the town just makes it all the more just sadder. It's a very sad moment, I think. And I wish we weren't in this position, but this is where we find ourselves.
I also have alcoholism in my family, and I I'm interested in what you said, Michael, about you stepping away. I personally would feel comfortable, personally, as one of 5, if you weren't on the premises and you weren't anywhere near there till it gets sold. I wouldn't have a problem with your father and Gary running the business, but I am concerned with guests who don't know what could happen if something happened. They wouldn't know to watch for anything. Families, young people who are there. So that's where I am. I don't want to see it taken away, but I am concerned with you living on the premises and running it on a daily basis. Your father has done a wonderful job. That's a wonderful business in town. It's been here. Everyone has worked there growing up, and it's got a long history. And I wouldn't want to see it end this way, but that's personally where I would feel comfortable.
Sure.
If I might, I did discuss this with Michael earlier. I'm not quite sure where the original thought came from. It may have been the town administrator, I don't know. If the board would be comfortable with Michael completely removing himself from the operation, he's prepared to do that, have no hand in it whatsoever. My understanding is Gary's quite capable of doing it, and although Bob is on in years, certainly has a vast knowledge which could assist Gary in doing it. He's more than willing to do that if it would allow the inn to run out the season. As they've all indicated to you, it is up for sale. They're hopeful that it'll be sold so that we wouldn't have to be back here again next year. The issue with respect to where he lives, his apartment is in the complex, though not actually connected with the inn. But I think he's amenable to doing that if that would satisfy the concerns of the board.
Sure. I just want to make just a couple comments, then we can discuss it. You want me to go first?
Sure.
I have the utmost respect for Bob and Lillian. I mean, I've been family friends since we were young. Growing up, the Peg Leg was like the star, the gem of downtown. And I honestly, I see that can be possible again in the future, and I hope to see the restaurant open again. Hopefully another, family will purchase it and do the same thing that you guys built and grew there. Tonight isn't about compassion. Every member of this board has compassion. I've felt sick to my stomach, honestly, since we got calls last week about this. But unfortunately, what tonight is about is it is about serious, serious allegations that we've all been made aware of that are being dealt with in the court. And it's our responsibility. Having a license in town is a privilege, not a right. And when we sign our name on any license, as I know Bob knows and you all know, we are vouching for a business. We are telling the people that are then going to come into town and rent rooms or eat at a restaurant that we support the business and we find the people running it and the workers suitable, and that going there, staying there, eating there is going to be safe. And unfortunately, with the allegations that we have, very, very disturbing allegations that, that I know we can't go into detail about, but that honestly, like in my good conscience, I could not allow it to continue. Unfortunately, if Mike is still on the property, if he's still managing it at all. And I do that with actually the utmost compassion for the employees, because it's almost more disturbing that the complaints have come from employees and not guests. That means that my guess is that the employees have been covering up, which we actually read in some of the reports, which is just so sad all around. And so the situation has to end, and unfortunately, we're the ones who are able to kind of control it. I know there has been some talk floating around about some type of plan where Mike wouldn't be on the premises, which I think we've shown tonight that we're open to. I know Selectman Murphy hasn't commented, but that would be it, honestly, unfortunately for me.
I just, in 9 years on the Board of Selectmen, this is the most difficult evening as Mike and I grew up together and played hockey, and I have the utmost respect for Mike, and I think he knows that, as well as Bob and Lily and the whole family. I hope that we can maybe come to some type of resolution here tonight, but we do have to take in consideration the public safety and things of that nature as we make our decision. But please understand that there is a lot of compassion. This is a good man right in the middle over here. He is a good guy. And if we can work something out here that's amenable to the board, I'm all in favor of that.
May I?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah, my concern would be, first of all, I think I'm hearing from everyone that we wouldn't want you on the premises at all, Mike. And I guess my question would be, how would we be certain that that would hold true?
No trespass order.
Yeah.
I think if we may take a brief break
Sure.
in light of this, just to discuss it further, and then the chief would be available to respond to the board's inquiries regarding that.
So take a 10-minute break.
That's fine.
Okay.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay.
Should we?
Are there any other? No, if my yeah. Are there any other comments or deliberations from the board? I know the chief wanted to just respond to the proposal from the license holder.
We'd like to hear from the chief.
Sure. I just want to speak real briefly about the compassion piece. I truly believe the board is compassionate. They've shown that compassion many, many times. And to the welcomes, the police department is compassionate, and the police department has shown your family compassion over the years, time and time again. And with that being said, from a public safety perspective, I cannot support the proposal that's been provided. I would respectfully refer the Board of Selectmen to the documents that have been submitted, the police reports, and just say that the proposal is truly unenforceable. There's no way for us to be able to enforce that and see that that is honored. So with that, I certainly don't support the proposal as it's been provided.
I think the town administrator also had a comment for the board as well.
So I would concur with the chief, and I think that the town has been compassionate and has shown the benefit of the doubt, as was referenced by Mr. Robert Welcome a couple of years ago, that the town has shown compassion and given another chance. And my recommendation is still the same, that based on these current circumstances, that in these events that continue to escalate, we're looking very specifically at the suitability based on these two most recent events, and they're escalating, and they are public health and safety concerns. So my recommendation is the same, and I concur with the chief of police.
Could the welcomes or your attorney please remind us what the proposal is?
The proposal is essentially that Mr. Welcome will vacate the premises, will have no hand in the operation of the day-to-day operation of the inn whatsoever. The inn would be run by Mr. Welcome Sr. and by Gary. How that could be verified, I'm fairly confident either one or both of them could certainly verify whether Michael is on the premises or not. I think that's a reasonable solution to the issue.
How do you respond to what the chief of, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
How do
please.
you respond to what the chief is saying?
The chief's concerned that there's no way to verify it.
The public safety issue.
Well, the public safety issue is, I presume, has to do with the fact that there are guests staying there, and I think
And
one
employees.
of you, and employees, one of you alluded to that. If Mr. Welcome, Michael, is not on the premises, that's not going to be an issue. And I will remind the board again that the court has imposed specific conditions in how he has to interact with his employees. And if he were to violate that condition, the sanction is quite severe. He'd end up in custody. But having said that, he is more than amenable to leaving the premises entirely if that would allow Mr. Welcome Sr. and Gary to run out the season. I think that's a reasonable solution to the problem, and I'm reasonably confident. I certainly know Bob would pick up the phone and call somebody if Michael were involving himself in the operation of the business.
So it's a question, is a no trespass order the same as a restraining order?
No, but that's a good point.
No. Go
Madam
ahead.
Chair. That's a very good point. You could put a no trespass order, and Bob could do that against him, and the police would have the ability to enforce that if he were to violate that. That's actually quite a good suggestion.
And that would be something that your client would be willing to do?
Yes. Now, he's obviously going to need a window of opportunity, a window of time to move out of his apartment. He's got a 2-floor apartment, he's got a lot of furniture, he's going to have some time to do that. He's amenable to doing it, however.
I mean, I think that's what we can offer. I mean, I think that's the only reasonable thing that we can offer. We all support the business, we support the Welcome family, but of course, we cannot, we can't ignore allegations, and, so in my opinion, obviously, we defer to the chief and assistant chief, but.
One point or one option for the board to consider, and certainly can hear from the chief and the assistant chief, if the board does want to entertain the option being presented, one option would be to suspend the license until such a no trespass order is granted and Michael Welcome vacates the premises. That would be an option on the license, in my opinion, from a legal standpoint, but certainly the chief can address the policy considerations.
Counselor, if I may, who actually takes out?
So that would be a private matter.
So that would be on the welcomes, is that
Correct.
correct? I don't know how it works,
Sure.
I'm sorry.
Where it's private property, and certainly I would defer to their own counsel, as I don't want to give your clients legal advice. However, where it is private property, it would have to be, the no trespass order would have to be from the private property owner against a particular individual, and that would be something that Mr. Welcome would have to take out against Michael Welcome.
And since the board doesn't obviously control private property, you recommend suspending the license until that's done.
That would be an option for the
Got
board
it.
to
Okay.
consider.
That makes
Is
sense
it-
to me.
Can I, is that something, I come back to the folks who are entrenched in this, which is the chief and the assistant chief especially. Does that sound like something that you could work with under those parameters, under those circumstances?
I can't answer your question because I would just through Attorney Austin, Mr. Welcome, is that something that you are receptive to? Because we've heard from everybody but you, so it would have to actually come from you, the no trespass order.
Yes.
Not you, Mr. Welcome, the other Mr. Welcome.
If that's the way it'll work to keep the employees going and keep it going till the 21st of October, and if Michael's not agreeing to that, then, it should stop.
Right, but the process would be you would have to complete the no trespass order, file it with the police department against Michael Welcome. You're willing to do that?
I can do that, under
Can I-
these circumstances.
Can I just have a point of clarification, if I may? My understanding was that the property is in the name of the corporation and that Michael Welcome is the president of that corporation. So I don't know
That
if
is
there's a
correct.
position in terms of
That is correct.
divesting, because obviously you can't no trespass yourself.
He's the named owner of the property. I don't think it would work. But
No.
if it's in a corporate name, I think it's possible. You might know better than me on that one.
What, the no pass? No-
He is,
Trespass.
I could use my corporate name.
well, it would have to go, as you know, whoever is the record owner of the
Right.
property would have to be the individual
And
to
if
no
it's a
trespass.
corporate entity,
Yes, I have one.
yeah.
So I think, just one other question. So it's still a bit unclear to me. Who or what corporation owns that property? One King
MR
Street?
Welcome Incorporated.
MR Welcome Inc. owns the property now.
That is correct.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but it's my understanding from the Secretary of State's website that Michael Welcome is the president of MR
I
Welcome.
understand
That is
correct.
correct.
So how does that work?
So you know.
He can't take it out against himself.
Correct.
Can he take it out with,
I don't, as the town's attorney, I don't want to provide any legal advice, but I would certainly, if you want to take a minute to discuss it with your counsel. But generally, you can't take you can't take a no trespass order against yourself is the issue, really.
corporate officer, other corporate officer can do it?
I don't know, and I don't want to speculate where you have your counsel present.
Absolutely not. We're trying to work with you. I don't want my employees to not have work, and I'm willing to, I mean, this is big. I mean, you're taking my business, my home, and I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to take the bullet.
I mean, I think
So-
that's something that they would have to figure out with their counsel, how to do it.
That's correct.
Right, and
You'd
you
have to
rec-
figure out in a way and obviously submit it for further, for review by the board.
I'm sure there's a way, I'm sure there's a way it can be done. But obviously our counsel can't counsel you on that. You would have to figure that out.
But that brings up a different.
I do expect it would take some time, given the corporate interests involved. And so that's something the board would certainly want to
That's
consider.
the question that I would have at that point, because now at that point, we talked about the suspension of the license. If the license is suspended, you have guests staying there now, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so that's something that you'll have to deal with, but I don't, it kind of complicates things on their end, because now there's corporate stuff involved, so I don't know how we get to.
I can't evict people out of the inn right now.
Yeah,
You
so-
you can't knock on someone's door and
Right.
tell them they have to leave the premises now. We just sat in front of the board and the police department, and I'm sorry, but,
Right, we understand, and no one is trying to disrupt the business, obviously. I mean, I think the goal here is that we're all trying to keep the business going. In your original recommendation to the board, it was to revoke the license in
10 days.
in 10 days.
Yeah.
So did it say 10 days?
I recommended 10 days to allow time to vacate the property and to clear and make
Okay.
alternate arrangements for
Okay.
the reservations.
So my recommendation for us would be to, in 10 days, to suspend the license, starting in 10 days, to give them 10 days to get everything sorted.
Wait, 10 days, you're talking about 10 days, we'll suspend it now?
No, I think we have to give them 10
Wait
days.
10 days?
The suspension starts in 10 days.
But that puts no restrictions
Right.
on Mr. Welcome being on
Right.
the
Well,
property.
I think,
Doesn't put any restrictions.
his original revocation had those 10 days as well to have him move out. I mean, I think, honestly, like good faith, we ask that he not be involved in the management of the inn as he vacates and moves out. And I think with the suspension comes, as we discussed earlier, a license is a privilege, not a right. And at any moment, this board can revoke the license. So I think Mitch's original proposal gave 10 days for him to move out and make arrangements for the guests. So I think we still afford that 10 days to let the current guests finish out their stays, hopefully get the corporate paperwork settled. In 10 days, the suspension would start. If it's not, if there's no trespass order and it's not, and you haven't left. But, that's also with the good faith effort that tomorrow morning you are not there managing, that Gary and Bob are there. I don't know how.
And hopefully within that 10 days, they will have the no trespass order. You'll have
Right.
moved out, and Bob
I'm not
and
comfortable
Gary.
with this. I'd be honest with you, I'm not comfortable with this. I'm
I'd
really
like
not.
to hear from the chief. I don't think
Sure.
we've heard what the chief thinks of this proposal.
So, as I was speaking earlier, if there's a no trespass order in place against Michael Welcome for 1 King Street, the Peg Leg Inn, and he's not on the premises, to me, that relieves and removes the public safety concerns that I have. If he violates that no trespass order, he's subject to arrest, and obviously, he has the pending criminal case as well. We're not there yet. It still needs to be completed, and it seems like there's some corporate things that need to be taken care of first. But from the public safety perspective, if he was off of the premises, did not live there, knows he cannot go there because he'll be served with a copy of that no trespass order, I'm comfortable at this point
And what
moving
about
forward.
What about the intervening 10 days?
You know, there are some restrictions in place, as they've stated from the court, half measures, if you will. I think, you know, there haven't been any incidents. I guess I'm trying to look on the bright side over the last few days. It's been a week since, a little over a week now since the original incidents occurred. I think if they make a good faith effort in the next 10 days to avoid the suspension of that license and fast track these things that we're discussing to bring this to a resolution, then I'm comfortable with that. Obviously, everybody there needs to be very vigilant. I hold the Welcomes, both of them, to their word that there not going to be any more incidents, and if there are, obviously the complexion of how this looks for all of us is going to change, and the trust factor is going to go way down if somebody goes back on their word here.
My concern is the time frame on this as well, because now that in light of corporate issues that have come up as far as who can actually take out a no trespass order, there's nothing saying that that council, and I'm not saying you would, but could come back and say, well, it's going to take us 30 days to get this done.
Right, but we have a suspension starting in 10.
And starting in 10 days.
Assuming that
We're still back to
the
where we
appropriate
were.
mechanism is a no trespass order, as I'm sure the chief can confirm, that happens right away. That's not, there's no delay with that. We just need to make sure it's the appropriate mechanism, that it can be done corporately. And if it can be, I think he's amenable to doing it. That's filed with the police department as soon as possible, and it goes into effect as soon as possible.
So he's saying for the 10 days leading up to now, Mr. Welcome will not be on the property at all. Is that the
I
assurance
need to
we're getting?
remove, I need to
Just to
remove
get his stuff
personal,
out.
I need to
We'll get his
remove
stuff
personal,
out.
I mean, I
understand.
have to, I mean.
But you'll have no involvement in running.
I'm not planning on going over the shelter tonight.
No, he'll have absolutely no hand in running the business. No hand in running the business. That gentleman will do it, and Bob will
Yeah,
do it.
and we still hold the license. I mean, we at any point could completely revoke the license, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, even if we vote-
Subject to
even
the
if we vote-
statutory requirements, yep.
Of course,
If
right.
sorry,
no.
Counsel, if something happens tomorrow,
Hmm?
and do we need to have our 3-day,
You do.
meeting notice and
So
then go from
this-
there, or can we
You
immediately?
need to,
revoke?
again, provide notice, and there would need to be another hearing. The board would also have to consider, if there was going to be a suspension, certainly the period of time that it wanted to suspend for, and that would have to be outlined in the board's decision. So obviously, a revocation of the license would just be for the remainder of this period of time, and then there would be a renewal license for the following year. A suspension of the license, there would need to be a specific time period specified by the board if the board wanted to consider that, is considering that option.
Okay. Okay.
Can someone summarize this for
Yeah.
me? What are we talking about?
Yeah, so maybe we'll have, Janelle, would you
Sure.
mind summarizing it?
And correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
My understanding is that the proposal for the board's consideration is that Michael Welcome would no longer be involved in the day-to-day operations or management of the Peg Leg Inn immediately, effective immediately. In addition, there would be a period of time where he would move out of the Peg Leg Inn, off the Peg Leg Inn premises, move his belongings off, and move to an alternative location within. Do you have a specific time frame? Or is it
5 days.
Well, my guess is
5
that it'd be
days.
at least a week, probably, to arrange movers and all of that stuff. So
so
I'd say probably a week.
a week? So immediately, no involvement in the day-to-day operations, no work there, no involvement with employees. 1 week to completely move off the premises. In addition, you would be seeking, subject to any corporate formalities, Michael, however it works out, a no trespass order against Michael Welcome that then would be filed with the police department for enforcement as necessary within 10 days, ideally.
Well, within the,
Within 10 days. Yeah. Within 10 days.
Within 10 days.
That would be lifted after we close, correct?
And in the event that in either event, or in the event the prerequisites of the no trespass order do not are not met within 10 days from today, the license, the innkeeper's license for Peg Leg Inn would be suspended for a period of
I think until October 21st.
until October 21st, 2019. I'm sorry, October 21st, 2019. So it would be suspended for that duration of time.
Counsel, what would happen if in this 10-day window, say Mr. Welcome did go back on the property? Can this be conditioned upon that? And if it would trigger something else, now that we're in public
The board
session
could
on this?
certainly provide additional notice to the Welcomes, indicating that that was a condition of the terms of the suspension, and consider that if they ultimately, the board could consider that to revoke the license if those terms are not met.
But what I'm saying is, could the suspension be predicated on the condition of him not being on the premises? So in other words, it would immediately take effect, so.
So it would
tomorrow-
immediately revoke?
So, exactly. So immediately, right now, if we said, okay, we'll agree to a 10-day window. If tomorrow, Mr. Welcome decided to go on property and do the books or whatever he decided to do, would that be a trigger to immediately revoke the license, or would another hearing have to be held? Could we condition it on-
I think technically another hearing would be required because it's a separate action. So you would have to provide notice of the revocation.
Could we stipulate that if any of those terms are violated, that the suspension would take effect sooner?
You could say the suspension, yes, if it's the same action. So you could say if the terms are not met, then the suspension would take effect immediately.
That, okay, that, I
Because
mean,
it's the same suspension.
I could
It's
live
the
with
same
that.
It's the
Same
same
action.
action. Got it.
I could live
Okay.
with that. That's fine.
Understand. Okay.
And certainly anything that happens between now and then could be considered by the board in the event further action needed to be taken, in my opinion.
Right. But the hope is that this keeps the employees
Right.
working, it keeps the inn operating, and it gives you ample time to move out.
He does have time to move out.
Yes, he has a week to move his personal things out. Yes.
So I can go on property.
You can go into,
During
Into
the
your
week
residence.
yes, into your apartment and stuff.
and in the
Yes.
business.
Yep. Does that sound, does that make sense to,
Considering the alternative, I think it's probably the best result we could expect.
okay,
Grateful for that.
okay.
So, I'm sorry, okay, go, please.
Sure,
go
so
ahead.
I just want to put something out there on this particular matter. So the board is showing great compassion in this particular issue. One chance has already been given. This is now another chance that's been given. It's important that that's kept in mind. There are not unlimited chances that the town is in a position to continue to give. So I would offer that, please be cognizant of this. We're all very hopeful that you'll meet these requirements, and this is what the board finally votes on, because this is important. I know from my perspective, there's only so many chances that you can get to operate a privilege in this particular case. So I would really hope that we aren't sitting back here again in the future having to go through this same issue.
If I might just respond to you, Mr. Administrator.
Could you speak into the microphone?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you, sorry.
If a no trespass order issues and the police are put on notice of that, if he were to violate that order, that's a criminal offense. That would trigger a complaint. And given his current circumstances, it most assuredly would land him in jail. So it's a very serious matter. He understands it and most assuredly would respect that order.
Great.
So,
Good.
just if that puts your
Great.
mind at ease, the
That's
consequences for
helpful.
him are significant.
So I just have one more, just thinking out loud. So when you go home tonight, you go to your apartment, you have a week to get moved out, but as of right now, no contact with the employees or the guests. Is that how I understood it?
That's correct. I think the proposal that the board's considering is that they would be effective immediately, no contact, no running of the day-to-day operations, and no contact, which I understand from counsel is also part of the criminal case as well.
Well, no, the criminal case allowed him to operate the business It did put restrictions on his interactions with the employees, but it did not prevent him from interacting with employees, and it didn't prevent him from being on the premises or operating the business. The sanctions here are actually much more severe than what the court imposed, but they're acceptable if it allows them to run out the season with the business.
Great,
So-
yeah. And just one other thing, he could contact, let's say Gary, the manager, or acting manager, to talk over the phone about different things, but just not be on premises and not, or not even that.
You know what,
Yeah, I think it's private.
Right, I
That
think
doesn't concern us.
Yeah.
my
okay.
my understanding is that Michael Welcome wouldn't be involved in the day-to-day management or operation of the business, and that would be then delegated towards Robert Welcome and whoever he
Okay, just
designates as the license holder.
Okay,
Okay.
just checking.
Can I, if I can, because I want to be very clear on what we're doing here, because this is very important. And please, anybody change this if they see it any differently. The conditions that I hear, that I want to make sure that everybody is on the same page for, is there's 7 days to move out, that there's absolutely, you have nothing to do with the business at all on premises. The suspension will take effect immediately if those conditions are violated, and a no trespass order will be put in place at the earliest possible time. Did I miss anything, or did I misstate anything? Somebody please correct me if I did.
I have effective immediately, not working or involved in the management or operation of the Peg Leg Inn, that within 7 days from today, calendar days, Michael Welcome would move off the premises in the entirety, and no later than 10 days to obtain a no trespass order, subject to conferral with counsel. If that no trespass order is not obtained within 10 days from today, calendar days, then a suspension would go into effect on until October 21st, 2019. And if there were if there was any violation of the terms of that suspension conditions, then the suspension would become effective immediately.
Immediately, okay.
That's what I have is the proposal from the
And that's exactly what I
Welcomes.
have. So I'm good with that.
Okay.
That's fine. I'm good with that.
Are the three of you,
That's my
is that
understanding.
agreeable? Okay.
I would just like to clarify one thing. The first chance you were talking about had nothing to do with a violation in any way, shape, or form of my license. It was a Corey check.
Okay. Okay. Let's move forward.
Move forward.
Great.
Move forward,
Okay.
Mike.
Okay, so do you need that in a motion from the board?
I would,
Okay.
yes. The board would have a motion
Yeah. Okay.
to consider the license relative to those terms and then vote on that. Following that, there would be a formal written decision, and certainly the board can designate town council or the town administrator to work with town council to formalize that and send it to Peg Leg's council if that's agreeable to Peg Leg.
Okay.
Did I get it, or do you want it?
Okay. So would you like someone to read that, or can someone just move what you?
Yeah,
Can-
so moved.
Okay, Ruth has
Yeah.
moved it. Would
Second.
someone like
So
to
moved.
second it?
To me?
Paul, Don has seconded it.
To you?
Would you like a roll call vote? Yes. Okay. Selectman George?
Aye.
Selectman Donnelly?
Aye.
Selectman Wilkinson? Aye. Selectman Campbell?
Aye.
Selectman Murphy?
Aye.
Okay. So unanimous by the board, and everyone is in agreement, so the attorneys will obviously work together on the written. Anything further from the chief, or? Okay. And, you know, as we've stated multiple times, we only want the best for your family and the business, and, you know, we look forward to seeing the Peg Leg for years to come. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
There's Phil up at the podium already.
Phil, welcome.
Good evening.
I apologize for our lateness this evening.
That's
Would-
quite okay.
Would you like to have a seat?
No, I think I'm all right.
Okay.
Well, thank you. Yes, okay, good.
Thank you, Janelle. Okay, will do. Thank you so much for making the trek. I hope you don't hit any traffic. Thank you.
Thank you, Janelle.
Bye-bye.
So, this is a reappointment interview for Phil Crotty to the Harbor Advisory Committee. Would someone like to make a motion?
I think that's my motion.
Okay.
Yep. I move that the board appoint Phil Crotty as a member of the Harbor Advisory Committee for a term to expire on June 30th, 2022.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Good evening.
Is that it?
That's it.
That's
You're
it.
done.
You're all set.
Okay, well, having waited all this while and all, I would like to beseech the board to, perhaps after the vote on the DPW facility, continue movement on the Harbor Advisory Committee's initiative, which is the fueling, the marine fueling here in Rockport, which we used to have, and which would render Rockport, we think, more boater-friendly. And we think we can find the resources to make it happen. And as you know, I was in the hospital last week, and just before I went in the hospital, I sent an email to Councilman Campbell that one of the last acts that I had to do before going in for open heart surgery was carry 4 5-gallon cans down to the boat so my wife wouldn't have to deal with that. And I really think we can do better. So I urge you to get on with that.
Okay. I think
Okay.
after this fall, after town meeting, it makes sense to reopen the discussions on that. Yep.
Please.
Yeah. What else is going on with Harbor Advisory?
That's the big one right now. We're very pleased that the staircase at Granite Pier is operational and working well, and see if it got flowers around it.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I didn't notice the
And,
flowers. Wow.
They put in, the harbor masters and someone from the planning board and the Community Preservation Act has put in a kayak launch facility next to at the town dock at Granite Pier. So it's moving. But there's a lot more we can do, including the federal boating infrastructure grant program, big grants they call it, for which there's quite a bit of money, and other communities are getting it. And the chairman of our committee, Steve Budrow, his wife is on the staff of the people who administer that program. So,
Oh, I didn't know that.
yes. So there are really things we can do, especially if we get a grant writer, which was
Yeah.
in the
Yep.
budget, I think, at least at the last town meeting. So that's it. Thank you for entertaining me this evening.
No,
Thank you,
Phil, thank you. I know that you put in hours and hours of work to Harbor Advisory Committee, and honestly, thank you for all of your time and efforts.
Thank you.
Thanks, Phil.
You guys have a good, hardworking committee.
And I will also advise you, or remind you that on the Community Preservation Committee, there are 4 things we can do, of which one is recreation,
Yes,
and boating fits under recreation.
yes.
Okay,
I have some ideas I'll run by you.
please.
Yeah,
Not tonight.
I've appreciated the correspondence back and forth,
Oh,
Phil, and
thank you, Mr.
I want to push this with you. This is
Okay.
this is a great initiative for the town.
Good.
It'll be
Okay.
big.
Good night.
Thank
Hold on,
you.
wait
Take
while
care.
we vote. Wait while we vote.
The suspense.
Any further discussion?
None.
No.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thanks, Phil.
Thanks to your wife for driving you tonight.
Did Kate leave?
Kate left because she had family in town, and I apologize that we've taken so long. She said she's happy to come to our next meeting, so she can get back and serve dinner to her family.
Okay, so we're gonna take that one on.
Yes. Approval of minutes of July 30th, 2019.
I move that the board approve the minutes of July 30th, 2019.
Second. Motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Great. Next, we have Selectmen and Town Administrators updates and liaison reports. Mitch?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The item that I have is certainly Mr. Campbell's really, so I would probably ask him to jump in on it, and then I'll chime in on the consent agenda
Oh, good.
draft that's in there and the guidelines. I think that's probably the significant
Okay.
item to start with for that.
And should that have its own agenda item soon?
No, I asked them earlier. Well, let's discuss it, and then
Okay,
we'll
got
go
it.
through it.
Okay.
Do you want me to take that?
If you want to start,
All
sure.
right, so again, this idea was born out of something I saw on the town of Swampscott's website, which expedites things to the point where you can free up a meeting time to take on the more weightier issues in town. A lot of the kind of the mundane stuff that has to be addressed by the board. If you look on the packets, you can see an example in yellow of what would be contained and what would be.
I was wondering why those were got
Yeah,
it.
so
Okay.
that would be an example of what we could vote on a consent agenda item. In other words, you take one vote for all of the items under that agenda. Now, the way it would also work is that any member of the public would be able to speak on any item they wish to speak on at the public comment period. They don't have the ability, however, to hold an item. Only a member of the board has the ability to hold an item. So I'm just pulling something random. So if we look at the agenda from last week, I asked Mitch to do this as a mock-up to give you an example of what it would be like. Let's just say open door. Somebody had a problem with open door, whatever it happened to be. You hold the items kind of like we do at town meeting, and then we could vote on that separately.
You'd pull that one out.
You'd pull that one out.
Okay.
And so, but the things that, the things that would need, appointments would need their separate votes. Monetary items would need separate votes. Mitch, what am I missing?
So is this so this is actually what last meeting would have been like?
Correct, that's what it would have looked like.
Okay.
And for example, there was discussion on the Cranberry Marsh.
Yeah.
So
So we
that
would
one,
pull that out.
when the consent agenda would come up, the chair would ask, does the board have any items that they'd wish to hold? Someone would say, I wish to
Cool.
hold Cranberry Marsh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That comes out, the motion on the floor would then be move to approve the consent agenda. From there, they would all be approved at once except that. The board would then go back and address that particular
Can
item.
we try it?
We can, but I want to be very clear in my motivation for doing this, which is to free up time for
Yeah.
us to take on the issues in town that need to be taken up. This is not to end a meeting early just for the convenience sake of it.
Totally.
This is so we have the time to do these things. Maybe we can have perhaps two committees come in.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't have to happen the same way every time.
Yeah.
Maybe finance and harbor advisory come in on one meeting.
Yeah.
Or maybe we talk about the fueling station, and because these are things that are going to take time.
Yeah.
So that's my intent
Yeah.
for doing it like that.
I mean, that's why we did things like have one speaker at town meeting now. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right.
It just takes away the
Yeah.
things that are wasting, the words that are wasting time and not.
I agree.
And leaves more time for the substantive items.
So I think this is a good way for us to address, the kind of the day-to-day issues, if you will, going forward. So-
I just have one question. So, for example, you talked about Cranberry Marsh or the Waring Field, that one there. So, when we start the meeting, we would have these things. The chair or Mitch or whoever would put the certain things on the consent agenda. That specific one, we didn't think there was going to be a problem, and it happened.
Good question.
It happened at the beginning or the middle of the meeting when someone brought up a concern for that.
Sure.
So how do we address that part of it? That,
Sure.
that's a perfect one to
I
kind of
agree.
think of.
That's a question I brought up
Yeah.
with Mitch.
So the chair at the beginning of the meeting would indicate if anybody has any items they wish to discuss, specifically the consent agenda, because that will be taken as one motion. Now is the time for you to raise a concern that you may have on that particular item, and you'd share it at that point.
Yeah.
It's then the board's decision on whether they opt to hold it or not.
Yeah. Because
So that
one
would be the
wasn't-
chance.
Yeah, because that one wasn't one of us. It was
Correct.
someone
It was
in the
some- yep.
audience.
So everybody would be encouraged to offer that up front. The chair would
Everybody
say.
meaning audience?
The audience, the
Okay.
chair would say, is
Yeah,
there
'cause
any
they said
public
no
comment?
audience. Okay.
Specifically, I think probably for the first few meetings, if you opt to try it, you'd want to emphasize a little further
Yeah.
that if anything on the consent agenda, that will be taken in one motion. Please share those thoughts now.
Yeah.
Right.
And
And then-
then when the motion came up, if the board, like if an issue comes up during the meeting, right, for example, under, if under another agenda item, one of the consent can the board then pull an item?
Well,
We
so you
could,
would
right?
have voted on it already, because the consent agenda is usually towards the front
Oh,
of the
first.
agenda.
Oh, perfect.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's the time.
But
Okay,
if
perfect.
something
Okay.
does come up, and Mitch, please correct me, because I'm getting into Robert's rules at this point.
Yeah.
We can reconsider a motion in the same meeting. So if something does come to, am I correct on that?
So
or-
if you're in the affirmative, you could make a motion to reconsider any.
Right.
You just have
Okay.
to be on the
Right.
prevailing
Right.
So
side.
there's a safety net there, if you will,
Okay.
to be
Yeah,
able to do
but
something.
timing-wise, it just kind of moves all those things to the
Right.
beginning.
Exactly.
So
It does.
that's when your time
Yeah.
to discuss.
Yeah.
So there still is
Yeah.
ample and
Yeah.
appropriate time for discussion. It's just shifted to the
Good
beginning
idea.
of the meeting.
Good idea.
Great.
And so I didn't make one of these meetings, so I abstained from approving the minutes. how would we handle that?
So you would, when it comes to the consent agenda, the chair would say.
You could
to the
remove that
board,
item.
Does the board have any items to hold? And you
And
would
that
say,
would be
please
when I would
hold,
hold it.
please hold the
Okay.
minutes.
If there was a reason, right,
Okay.
like my father-in-law, as far as Thatcher Island, if that was part of something,
Yeah, yeah.
then I
That's when
could,
you would say
right.
that, okay.
Okay.
And it might, honestly, when you're making the agenda in terms of minutes, it might make sense to do a quick peek at the minutes
Mhm.
and see, because it might just be worth it to not include those in the consent agenda.
Yes.
Right.
If,
Yep.
if we weren't all
Yep.
present.
but I have every faith in Mitch,
Yeah.
that Mitch will go through
He's
this.
a master of
Exactly,
agendas.
he'll know
So,
exactly what.
and my basis, as I shared with Selectman Campbell today, is if it's something that's non-controversial, doesn't require significant
Absolutely.
discussion,
Yep.
it's, if it clears it through. So looking at that agenda, the potential on that one would have probably saved 20 or 25 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
absolutely.
without a doubt. Yep.
So it does open the board up for other options.
Other opportunities.
Yep.
Yep.
I think it's a
agree.
great idea.
And you're so good about, like, knowing items that I, have total faith in you that you'll know what's, obviously things always come up. But
Sure,
you're
yeah.
very good at knowing kind of what's going to be a hot button issue and what's not.
Yeah, and I would certainly do my best to be sure that we don't include any of those up front. They'd be standalone as they
Right, and
would.
we
There's
can
still
always pull
be.
them out as soon as we
But-
get there.
yeah, but we
Like,
can pull them if we
And
need
even
to.
during public comment, if somebody gets up and speaks during public comment and raises an issue, we still have the ability to pull that at that point
Right.
and,
Yep.
and do what we need
Yep.
to.
Yep.
So to address what you were talking about as far as Cranberry Marsh, it came up after the fact. There you go.
Cool.
Okay, good.
I say we try it. Great
Yeah.
idea.
So if there's a consensus from the board this evening, we'll
yep.
plan that for the next agenda, we'll start it.
Okay.
If there's
Change
consensus.
is
Great
hard.
idea.
We know
Yeah.
we're going to like hyperventilate, but
Yeah, yeah.
But I still would, if we can, make every effort to, educate the public. And I saw on the back of our agenda here that we have our visitor orientation rules for the meetings. So perhaps, I don't know if we want to add something in on that.
Yes, I would say let's give it a meeting or two to see how it flows for the board, and then we'd look to make a change to the
maybe
orientation
we
on
announce
the
at the
back.
beginning that we're trying
Yep.
this new, and it's
I just don't want
a work in
anybody to be
progress.
blindsided. I
Yeah.
want them to know
Yep.
why we're doing it and
Yep,
what
yep.
the parameters are
Yep,
of how we're
totally.
doing it.
Yeah. Great.
Okay.
That's good.
I'm good.
Cool. Paul, you good with it?
No, that's wonderful.
Everybody okay with it?
Yep. Cool.
All right, we don't need a formal vote. I asked you that. We're good with that. Just
No, there's no policy. If there's a consensus and the board's on the same page, we'll do it for the next meeting.
perfect.
Great.
Awesome.
Thank
I
you.
need someone to keep reminding me that our meetings are at 6:30, not at
Yeah.
6.
I
'Cause
know,
I'm like,
yeah.
I'm just not good at that. I'm like running down here at 5:55.
Yeah, yeah.
Did you want me to address the DEP item,
Oh,
Madam
yes,
Chair?
please. I
Sure.
forgot we're
So
still in
we did
updates.
receive the decision from the Department of Environmental Protection for the appeal.
Yep.
The appeal was denied by DEP. They upheld the decision of the Conservation Commission.
Mm-hmm.
They did indicate that they felt there were some areas that the town could reapply for in the crushed stone area. There are some
Mm-hmm.
items but that would be a separate filing, et cetera. So it was denied, and from my perspective, that closes the matter.
Yep.
The town exercised its right to appeal, and it closes the matter at this point. Unless the
Yep.
board feels otherwise, I believe it's closed.
Yeah, no, I mean, you had mentioned, I think, the process was the process. I know
Right.
there have been some emails floating around about the town appealing that, and
I don't find that to be
an
an appropriate step for us
Yep.
at this point,
I
unless
totally
the board
agree.
disagrees.
And you had mentioned perhaps looking at the crushed stone area, just moving around some parking spaces.
There
And I
were-
think
there were a
obviously
few-
the two most important spaces are the CPC-approved parking spaces for the tennis courts.
Sure, if there's another way to do that, we're kind of
Yeah.
going through that separate, but there was some work that was in the original request,
Yeah.
Okay.
separate from that, putting some
Bollards.
bollards in place.
Mhm.
So that's something that we'll probably resubmit,
Okay.
fairly soon, depending on staffing and DPW, to address that particular issue, because that was not necessarily objectionable based on the letter
No,
from
and
DEP.
honestly, after having been to the meeting with the hearing, the DEP visit,
Yeah.
I would assume that,
Yeah.
that would be something that would actually help keep people off of
Yeah.
the,
It would be easier
where
for
the
us
parking
to
wasn't approved.
Right.
manage some of the spaces we have in that
Yeah.
area. It'll be
Yeah.
a clear point that you park, center mast on these
Yeah.
these bollards, which would
Great.
really tighten that up.
great.
Yeah.
And I know that Rich did a nice job, and Jerry did a nice job replying to emails that came in, kind of requesting that we fight the DEP decision,
Yeah.
but I think, if I'm hearing correctly from the board, that there's no interest from the board on doing that, and that
Yeah.
you're working on the CPCs, on another solution for the
Sure.
CPC spaces.
If there is
Yeah.
one, we'll certainly consider it, and we'll be looking at that with
Yeah.
DPW and Concom.
I mean,
And-
if there was division on the board about which tack to take on this. The process played itself out. The result is what it is. We move on.
Yep.
Right, yeah.
That's
Yeah.
it.
And I think the CPC piece of the 2 parking spaces, right now, it works. We are using spaces over at Pratt's, and people hopefully will know that, or we can remind Mr. Pratt about that they are available, and we pay for those, and that, I mean, that type of thing that we, the people park there, and that is the option that's been going on since it got passed at town meeting.
Yes, and just to clarify, we don't pay for those. Mr. Pratt offers those as a,
Right.
as a gesture. to the
I
community.
meant to say that.
Oh, yeah, no, that's the problem. I just
But
thought, yeah.
no charge to the
That's nice.
to
Yes,
the people
no
who are
charge
playing.
to the community who's
Right.
playing and utilizing the court. Absolutely, there's no
Right.
charge for them.
Yeah, and that's the alternative. I mean, I did want to see it change, but it played out. This is how it is. It spoke for itself, and we'll do the parking spaces for tennis a different way, and that will be fine.
We'll see what we can figure out. Absolutely.
Good.
Great. Did you have anything else?
Just that we're plugging along on town meeting, but we'll get to that piece in the action list. That's it for me this evening.
Okay, I just wanted to mention, I wanted to mention the fireworks. Should I do that now while we still have people
Oh,
here?
sure.
So I wanted to obviously thank the fireworks committee for like a fabulous weekend of fireworks.
Perfect weather.
Yeah, I mean, the weather, everything. Town was, I mean, honestly, I actually can't remember when the last time I saw that many people in town. Like all day, like all weekend for. And then I think I probably share frustration with some board members. And I'm not speaking about all restaurants and businesses, but we got emails. I know a bunch of us have received comments, but just utterly disappointing that lots of businesses and restaurants closed early. I know a few had approached you and kind of encouraged getting food trucks. I personally thought that was more to handle the volume of people, and that, they felt overwhelmed last year. But I saw on Facebook one restaurant was like closing at 7 to allow employees, but it wasn't a holiday.
Yeah.
So I was just like, no, because I'm seeing people. And there was one food truck which was helpful. But it's not helpful if everyone closes. So I think we have to sit down and take a hard look at, we want to support the businesses here, but it's a back and forth.
It's a
I
balance.
think one of the-
Obviously, we can't force them to stay open, but the fact of the matter is that the town is filled with people,
Yeah.
and not everyone is local like us, so they're looking to get something to eat, and they line
go
outside.
shopping.
the-
Or go shopping.
Yes,
yeah.
or go
I
shopping.
think we need to. I
It's
think
an
we need to have a
opportunity.
conversation with Peter Weber and Ken Reel, and,
Yep.
and
Yeah,
see if we
absolutely.
can get them. Because for us to do it individually with
Yeah.
businesses
No,
doesn't make sense.
we've got to sit everybody
But if we can have a
down.
point of contact, and maybe in that newfound time slot that we have here for the board, maybe we can have Peter come in and Ken, and we can talk about it.
And the unfortunate thing is they're frustrated as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm sure this
that's-
is not new to them.
No,
That's
it's
part of the
not new.
challenge, and
Right.
hopefully, once the season clears and we get into the fall and the winter, the
Yeah.
board can consider a larger meeting with the chamber and with some
Yeah.
folks, because it is a challenge
And
when
it's
we have people
repeated.
come in. It's a challenge.
repeated
Yes.
issue they've
Right.
dealt with.
It's
Yeah,
frustrating.
and I mean, it's we have businesses, and I'm not saying that they're the same ones, but we have businesses that come in and say, don't, be careful with the makers festivals and the
Yeah,
harvest
parking meters, people
festivals
come in and-
Parking meter.
right. But then on the other hand, we have,
there for them.
things like the fireworks, and then businesses are closed, and it's like, there are only so many times people visit when there's nowhere to eat. And,
Jim Central, we'll have him bring his barbecue down, and we can have
Yeah.
a barbecue right out in front of your
Yeah.
house, Jim. There you go.
So anyway, I certainly don't want to take away from what was like a fabulous weekend.
Absolutely.
And, the weather, the fireworks. I
Sue,
know
just-
Sue and Tim Collins do like a spectacular job.
Absolutely.
And the police, I mean, I watched the
the
fireworks.
DPW.
Yep.
DPW, they had police details kind of to head off traffic. Mitch worked all day Saturday.
Our police and DPW really deserve a significant amount of credit.
They
The
do.
officers, the way they manage just the traffic coming out of town,
Yeah, it was
that
crazy.
alone is amazing how they handle that. And Public Works was in the very next morning at 6 a.m. There were 2 crews. One started at the south, one started at the north, and they just worked their way up. So
Yeah.
certainly a lot of kudos to Public Works and
Yeah.
to police and
Yeah.
to fire.
Yeah.
We had a fire detail on site for this event, and they were very present. So certainly the departments are wonderful in this, and the Collins and their committee is
Yeah.
just
It's a win.
phenomenal.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think too that the fireworks were so spectacular that it diminished people having their own fireworks after the fact. I mean, heard 2 firecrackers go off in my neighborhood over in Pigeon Cove and nothing else. It was so nice because usually, like 4th of July, you hear them all night long, all over
yeah, like
town.
Long Beach, there's usually
Yeah.
a show after
This
the show.
This was
Yeah.
so nice that it eliminated that. You could take your dog out for a minute or something and not think you're gonna go sailing down the road with it. But
Yeah.
you know, it was beautiful. What a beautiful night.
It was a win.
Was.
Absolutely.
Good.
I always tell the cons they make Rockport rock.
Oh, yeah, that was a great idea for us to
Anyway.
bring that
Yeah,
from the Cape.
Any other updates?
I just have
reports?
one.
Yeah.
So we as a board, I think it was last meeting, signed a declaration designating the last week in September as Climate Preparedness Awareness Week in concert with an effort that's going on statewide run by a nonprofit. And as part of that declaration, we are going to conduct a discussion in town at the Community House on September 26th. And our speaker is going to be Kathryn Glenn, who is the Northeast Regional Manager of Coastal Zone Management. And she's going to talk to us about Pebble Beach and Long Beach and kind of what the challenges are for those beaches. I think it's more a chance to get ourselves educated and learn from her. She's very knowledgeable. She's very excited about this and having the opportunity to speak. So I'll share this information with Mike Cronin. It would be great if we could put it on the website, but just wanted to share that.
Do you know what time that's going to be?
I think 7. I'm going to
Okay,
confirm that
okay.
with her this week.
Great. Okay. Anything else? Okay. Moving on, at long last, I know we've been trying for like a month and a half, but this is the first meeting actually in like 2 months that we've had all the
Been
board
here.
members here. So that's a good sign. It means everyone's healthy and in the country. We have reorganization of the board and liaison assignments. Are there any motions?
I'd like to put myself into contention for chairman of the board.
I'd like to nominate Paul for chairman.
Okay. So is that a motion to,
Sure, I'll make the motion. Can I make a motion on behalf of
I don't
myself?
know.
Is that permissible?
I don't,
So there should be nominations on the floor, and then I would say you want to act on those nominations.
They gotta be seconded.
They need to be, they need to be made and seconded. Are there any other nominations?
well, so Don has nominated
Yep, so
himself.
there's 2 on the floor right
Yep,
now.
Denise has nominated Paul.
Mhm.
I don't have any other nominations for chair.
So I would say if there's any feedback or commentary
Okay.
now, and then we can give me a second to think about how to best
Okay.
handle that.
Okay. Any comments?
Do they
I'll-
accept, well, I think Mr. Campbell accepts, obviously, the motion. I would, the chair may want to ask Mr. Murphy if he accepts.
Oh, sure. So obviously you accept your nomination.
Of course.
Yep. Paul, do you accept the nomination?
I do.
Okay.
Comments?
Sure.
Okay. I've been a member of this board now for 3.5 years. My time has come. It's time for a bit of a different perspective, one that is, not to disparage anybody or anything, but just something different at this point. I think in those 3.5 years that I've been on the board, I've been absent from 2 meetings. One because it was my anniversary. The other one was because I was on vacation. So my commitment to this board and to the work that it does is without question. Mr. Murphy has been chairman of the board. He's a past chairman. I've served twice as vice chairman, and I'm very appreciative of that. But the time has come for me to step up and be chair of this board. And I would hope that my fellow board members would see that and would support me in that endeavor. And I'll keep it with that.
So, Madam Chair, I would suggest that you take them one at a time. So, Mr. Campbell's nomination take that one and then take Mr. Murphy's.
Okay, but could we let Paul speak?
Yeah, after he, yes, certainly, just.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Okay.
I would never, ever question Mr. Campbell's commitment to the Board of Selectmen. He's done a great job for 3.5 years, very committed. I've been on the board 9 years now, will be 9 years, and I feel very comfortable leading the board, and I hope that you, the 3 of you or 4 of you, would support my nomination to be chair. Thank you.
So should we?
So I would say the board should take a vote on Mr. Campbell's nomination, and then depending on the outcome, the board would take a vote on Mr. Murphy's nomination.
Okay.
Would you vote on chairman, vice chairman, or would vice chairman be a separate
Separate
motion?
vote.
I'm
Separate vote.
confused. Okay, so.
So there's a nomination,
Yeah,
so the vote would
there's
be,
a nomination on the floor, right.
appoint-
Should it be seconded?
it should be seconded.
Okay,
If-
would
yeah,
someone like to second that? Okay. So
Okay, so
Don's nomination
should
has
be- yes.
been
Yep.
seconded, now discussion?
I would say that from my perspective, I don't see the chair as something that one is entitled to after a period of time. I, too, really admire your commitment and your dedication to the role. It's just a question of, I would rather have Paul be chairman. It just because of my perspective on things and the way the town operates and my comfort with that. And so it's not a matter of have you earned it. I don't think it's something that you earn after a certain number of years. I just have a different perspective.
Can I respond?
Sure.
If that's okay. I appreciate what you're saying. I don't feel it's an entitlement. I do feel, however, that it is something that is earned. It's earned by time and commitment, and to that end, I do feel it is something that is earned, and I have put the time in, I've put the work in. I've made the commitment to my position and to this town to lead it in the best direction that does not represent my personal views, but those that are best for the town. So I would ask you and my fellow board members to consider that as we debate here.
Okay. Ruth, did you have any comment? No. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I like Denise. I don't. I certainly don't question your commitment. I enjoy being on the board with you. I think that we have, different opinions, which I appreciate.
I think that's what makes the board
I
tick.
totally think that's what and honestly, in all the years I've been on the board, I think the variety of opinions and views we have right now is some of the most wide-ranging, which I think is the healthiest. Excuse me, if you're gonna talk, could you please leave? I mean, and I'll be totally honest, because I know you like people to be honest with you.
Always.
My issue with you being chair is I consider local politics like pretty nonpartisan. In fact, my first several years on the board, no one even asked, what I was registered, no one, and then all of a sudden, there was a candidate, it wasn't you, it was before you, and all of a sudden I was told by, the Republican committee in town that they could no longer put my campaign signs up, and I was like, what? I was like, this is Rockport. And then I felt like that disappeared again, and I feel, unfortunately for me, that sometimes you let your, your partisan politics, like, be the forefront. I mean, I've seen it on your Facebook page.
But when has that played into my role as a selectman? It never has.
I hear comments all over town.
It doesn't
about
matter
it
what the
from people.
comments
Well,
are.
It's just my
When
perception.
I understand that,
Yeah.
but it doesn't matter what people say in town. I'm not looking to cast aspersions on anybody, but I hear comments about everybody on this board, me included. But I've never, ever let my political ideology interfere with my decision-making for this town. So people can say what they want. I am who I am, and I will not stray away from that. I believe what I believe,
That's
but I've
fine, and
never.
you're right. I'm not out. I'm
There's only, I'm
not
going to
asking
stand
you.
corrected. There's been one time that I've let it come in, and it's been an issue that's been divisive in this town quite a while back, was the sanctuary city issue, which I was completely opposed to, and I still remain opposed to this day. Other than that, I would ask anybody on this board to cite one example of where I've let my political ideologies interfere with my decision-making for this town. And if you have it, I'll withdraw my nomination personally.
Well, I can look up your Facebook
My Facebook has
posting.
nothing to do with it.
But see,
It has
I get
nothing to do with it.
Honestly, and I'm being totally honest, that's where we differ because.
But it has
for
nothing to
me,
do with the town. You're conflating two separate issues.
My personal Facebook is me.
It's my
and
personal name.
And right, and to me, I'm a selectman, and it.
And I have a separate
represents me.
selectment page, and if you
So
look at
I
that
guess
page.
we just looked at
It's-
look at it differently.
I
which is
understand,
fine.
but again, I would say to you, you show me one example, one.
Sure, so someone wrote.
Hold on, let me finish my sentence, please. Show me one example of where my political ideologies have interfered with my decision-making in an issue for this town, not a Facebook post, that doesn't count, for this
So
town.
why doesn't that count?
Because it doesn't affect my decision-making for the town.
Someone, a Facebook friend of yours, wrote the term libtard on
I never saw that.
I have a screenshot of it
Go ahead.
on your Facebook page, and you liked the comment. That
I
to
like,
me,
you know why I like the comment? To let and I do that on my selectman page as well, to let people know that I saw it. That's it. It's not that I liked it. Like doesn't mean in the respect
so
of like.
so honestly, it's just a difference in opinion in how we view
But
our
never
our
once,
public
and I want
profile.
this stated very clearly
That's
for the
fine.
record,
So I
never one
disagree.
time has my ideology interfered with my decision-making for this town, because the only thing I have in mind for this town is what's in the best interest of this town, period. Nothing has ever interfered with that, not one time, ever, in my 3.5 years on this board. And I think for anybody on this board to use social media, which I can use against anybody, to use that against me is unfair and it's wrong. And it's completely wrong. Because I've never let that interfere with anything I've ever done on this board.
So you don't think that your social media presence represents you and your position as one of the leaders in town?
On my selectman page, sure.
But
And
not on your personal Facebook
my personal page. So is a selectman not entitled to a personal life?
Yes.
Are they not entitled to? Are they
my-
not? Wait a minute. Are they not entitled to their own political ideologies, their own thoughts and ideas?
Yes.
Okay, then
100%.
what's the problem?
So my problem is that I feel like you let them overtake,
Overtake what?
like overtake your public page, and some of the things you write and like on your page I find offensive.
And
So
they're-
don't look
and
at my
they're-
page.
But
So
they're
unfriend me.
public, Don, they're public. And whether.
It's my
let me
personal
just-
page.
I understand.
Right, that's
Let me
fine. We
just
we
finish.
just view it differently, which is
I
fine. But
understand.
honestly, I enjoy working together on the board. I 100% respect you and all the work that you do.
But you don't respect my political ideologies.
No, I don't respect how
Okay.
you use them. How you use them in
So
town.
I don't use them in town. I don't conflate
So
town
that's
political
really
issues.
honestly, we could argue till we're blue in the face.
We could, but I
it is
want to
what
be
it is.
clear on this, because what you're doing is you're taking my national political stances and conflating them with my local politics, which the two are completely separate, and I've taken great pains. I challenge anybody to go back and look at anything on my selectman page and show me where I've been partisan in any way at all. Everything is there, nothing will ever be removed. So I've kept the two worlds completely separate.
But you are
Right,
one
so,
person.
So
It
to
doesn't
me,
matter.
To me, there aren't different.
It doesn't
worlds.
matter.
To me, there aren't. When you're a selectman, there aren't different worlds. It's just me.
There are selectmen.
Because honestly, and I will tell you, personally, if I want any resident in town, no matter their political party, no matter what, to feel comfortable coming to me with town issues, and I don't think people feel that way with
Oh, they
you.
completely do, and that's judged by the volume of phone calls and emails that I get from people. So what you're
That's fine.
asserting is completely false.
Okay.
It's based on a false premise, and I can obviously see where this is going. It's unfortunate, because I've earned it, and I will use the word earned, because I put the time in, I
But
put
to
the hard work
earn
in.
it, Don, you have to earn the support of your fellow board members.
So I have to. So what you're saying to me, Denise, is, and I've seen your political ideologies. I know what you're about as far as the environment. I respect that. Those are your ideas. You're entitled to those. And
But
though I
don't-
disagree with you,
Yes.
and a lot of the things that you say, you have the right to say them.
course.
So what you're saying to me is, because of what I believe, I don't have the right to
No,
believe what
that's
I believe
not.
in a public context. There are
Please
selectmen
don't
all
put
over the
words
states.
in my mouth.
Well, that's what you're saying to me
No,
now.
it's not. What I'm saying is that you are one person, and things you post on your personal page are posted by Don Campbell, and Don
Not
Campbell.
Don Campbell Selectman.
But you are the
It
same
doesn't matter.
person.
My worlds are
Okay.
separate,
Right.
and that's
Yeah.
why I have
So
two
we
separate
disagree.
pages.
It is what it is. I just honestly, I know that the last time you didn't get chair, I think you were upset that no one. I wanted to be honest with you. about
I
it.
know, and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I do appreciate it. I think the premise of why where I can obviously see this vote going. I think your premise is completely wrong, and I think what you're doing is denying me the ability to have my political ideologies and my political thoughts, and you're conflating them and bringing them together with what happens here, and it's not fair and it's not right. So.
Okay. Any other comments?
I'm going to stay.
Okay.
Staying out of it.
So I believe Don's nomination has been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, nay?
Nay.
Nay. So the motion doesn't carry. And then, so Paul's nomination is on the table. Is there a second?
Seconded.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay?
Nay.
Motion carries.
Congratulations.
Great.
Congratulations,
And now we have vice chair. I would like to nominate Ruth as vice chair, if you'd be interested, willing.
Sure.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any other, I should ask if there are any other nominations? Hearing none? Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Great.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
That's right.
All right.
We can move chairs. Paul and I could, we can
Oh, you have to do it
switch.
now?
Yeah, he's got to sit in the middle.
So do you want to sit here?
It's okay, I'll stay right here.
So the vice chair should sit next to the chair.
Yeah, she just means she won't
Yeah.
move tonight.
Oh.
Here,
Oh, that's right. I don't, we don't have to.
that's fine. Just switch. You already switched. Don't leave the trip. We only have a few minutes left.
Okay. Okay, let's continue on with our action list. Approve and the signed fall town meeting warrant.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
my apologies, just,
Oh, sure.
as another item, the liaison assignments.
Oh, yes.
the board.
Yep.
As I did last year and as requested by the board, I did an initial draft of liaison assignments. I would say they're probably 95% the same. I did shift a couple of them based on some feedback from the board and some areas that may be a good fit. We had some changes particularly to the CIPC rep, which that's a significant workload, so I did some further shuffling. So, Mr. Chair, if you'd like, I'll read off what they are for the...
Please, if you would.
Sure. So my recommendations are Select Person Wilkinson, Finance Committee, School Committee with Select Person Murphy, Government and Bylaw Committee, Zoning Board of Appeals, and Historic District Historical Commission. Select Person Donnelly, Board of Assessors, Green Community Task Force, Conservation Commission, Rights of Way, Town Art Committee. Select Person George, DPW, Board of Health, CIPC with Select Person Murphy, Addison Gilbert Hospital, Economic Development Committee, Council on Aging, and CPC. Select Person Murphy, Beautification Committee, School Committee with Select Person Wilkinson, Harbor Advisory Committee, Library Trustees, Granite Pier Committee, and CIPC with Selectman George. Selectman Campbell, Millbrook Meadow Committee, Cultural Council, Memorial Day Parade Committee, Stratesmith and Thatcher Island Committee, Planning Board, Open Space and Recreation Committee. And it's certainly the board's discretion on however you opt to do that. They're majority the same as last year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any comments regarding that?
Just one change. I think, shouldn't the chair be Government and Bylaw Committee? Because they,
It's a board preference.
don't they do appointments?
They do, but it's certainly the board's
Does- okay.
preference.
I'm happy to do it.
Okay, I'll make that adjustment. Yep.
There's a meeting Friday morning at 8:30.
To nominate
No, actually, Bob
Denise
did
Donnelly.
text me to see which one of us should go. It doesn't matter. Do you want
Well,
to
so the
let
chair
us
would make
know?
the appointment, but the liaison assignment is up to the board. So,
Okay, got it. Okay,
if
so
it's
we
the
can work it out. It doesn't
sure,
matter.
just let me know where you land. But
Yeah.
Friday would be Mr. Murphy.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Is that okay, Friday at 8:30?
Yes.
We had scheduled it a long time ago.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And I've tried really hard my first year doing all mine, but it's difficult, and I'll still do it, but it's the Economic Development Committee because it's always on the same night as Selectmen's. And, I mean, I've gotten to 2 meetings in the year, and
Yeah. I know they just canceled their last one.
I know, I just saw it up there canceled, but So
yeah.
I'll keep plugging away at it,
It is
but
what it is.
it
I
is,
mean,
yeah,
I've talked to them before about, like, we can't,
yeah,
you know, we can't leave our meetings till
yeah. I might talk to
liaison.
Lana about seeing if she could schedule it another night of the week.
I actually, as an aside, I had a really nice talk with Ed Hand, who
Mhm.
suggested, he said to me, it seems oftentimes, I mentioned this to you, Mitch, he said it seems oftentimes like we're running around trying to get to multiple meetings. He said it may be that the major, some of the larger committees that we're liaison to, like quarterly, we should have their chairs come in and meet with us. So almost like you're the liaison idea, but then in addition to that, because sometimes like it makes sense for, you know, DPW, Harbor Advisory, and somebody else to meet with us. I think it's just worth exploring that a little bit.
And I would say if the board opts to do that in the future, there would be time with the consent agenda that's in place.
Yeah, to
So
have
there's
them
time for
coming
that.
to us and like talking about kind of the most, because, you know, obviously we can't get to every meeting.
Right, and the limited amount of meetings that are held on Tuesday would be better. So
Right.
that people can.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah, I know it's not always possible.
So, just want to make sure I have it correct. So, do you want to shift that liaison assignment to Mr. Murphy, or?
Oh, I can, we'll figure it out. You can leave.
Okay,
it for now,
that's
but we
fine.
can go to
That's
the
fine.
fifth.
Just let me know,
That's
and
fine.
then
Yeah.
you said you'd maintain
Yeah,
economic
there's a
development.
bunch of other
Mr.
ones
Campbell, are
now.
you?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I'm
not-
fine with what I have.
Ms.
Yeah,
Donnelly, are
I'm
you?
not tied to anything, so if anyone wants any,
I'm fine.
doesn't matter.
And Ms. Donnelly, are you all set with yours? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so thank you very much. We will get these sorted and get them posted, and we'll do what we did last time, send out a notice that here's your liaison.
Great.
But we'll make sure that we reach out specifically to those who have a change
Okay.
for that. And, Mr. Chairman, when you get to the action list, I would ask that you and the board consider taking the Thatcher Island MOU first. Dr. Wedmore is here, I believe, for that.
Yes.
Assuming for that.
How appropriate.
I don't need to abstain for that, correct?
No.
Okay, good.
Toby?
Yes, a liaison to the Addison Gilbert Hospital, and do you have a liaison to the Board of Appeals?
Yes.
We just, I believe
just
we read
read those.
that out. Select Person George is Addison Gilbert Hospital, and Select
Oh,
Person
I'm Board of
Wilkinson is
Appeals.
Board of Appeals.
Very good.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'll be totally honest, I'm not gonna be able to go to all the Board of Appeals meetings, but I will be in close contact with them, and, you know, I'll do the best that I can.
Sure.
But with FinCom, school committee, you know what I mean, we're all gonna do the best we can.
Absolutely. Okay, anything else? Mitch?
No,
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Let's go on to the action list. Approve and sign
Go to
fall.
Thatcher Island.
We're going to do, that's right, Thatcher, I'm sorry. Let's go to Thatcher Island.
I got your
MOU.
back, Sid. Sid, can you go to a microphone, because for the TV, please?
Pretty straightforward. There's
Yep.
been a memorandum of understanding in the works between Fish and Wildlife and the town of Rockport over how we interact and take care of each other's property on Thatcher Island. The problem is, it's been about 30 years, and it hasn't been signed yet. That's a number of different things, but basically, the last director of Fish and Wildlife, Mr. Peterson, pushed it to get it done, and he's just left, and it falls through the cracks on this side. The memorandum of understanding is pretty straightforward. It describes basically what has been the interactions on the island for the last 30 years. And I think the only real holdup had to do with culpability and legal issues. And hopefully Mitch has sorted that out.
They did accept all of our changes.
So if, from my reading of it, I would encourage you to sign it. Thank you.
Okay,
Would you like a motion, Mr. Chair?
please.
I move that the board approve and the chair sign a memorandum of understanding between the town and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service Northeast Region for the National Wildlife Refuge on Thatcher Island.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion from anyone?
No, I just had one quick question. So is the north tower still closed from the, why, I guess the question is why is the north tower still closed?
The North Tower is closed because there was repairs that were done on it.
Yeah.
A big chunk of granite fell down, that was replaced.
Yeah.
put in place, but there has been what's called a Dutchman repair, which is some concrete on the outside to finish it off. That has cracked.
Oh,
And
got it.
has that potential risk for falling.
Okay.
International Seas will come take another go at it.
Okay.
and look at it.
Okay.
But in the meantime, as a preemptive thing, the towers were closed by the town
Of
committee,
course.
and no trespass was done on the place.
Got it. Okay. Yes. My kids were out there, and so I was just
But you
wondering.
can't climb the south.
They did. My kids climbed the south tower and had a blast.
You see one tower, you see them both.
Right. And then just a really quick aside, I was in the Gap fishing this weekend, and there were like probably 20-something kayaks on the Straitsmith ramp. And then there were probably like 15 people up in the Straitsmith light. We took some pictures off to share them with you. But like crazy huge usage of Straitsmith and the new ramp, which was like really cool to see.
Yes, it's become very popular. Several reasons. One, it's a lot shorter. From here to Straitsmith. And number two, this year, because there aren't the amenities there are on Badger Island, we are not implementing the $5 landing fee, which has been accepted by Audible. Next year we will.
Got it.
And if nothing else, there'll be more money in the kitty because of all those kayaks.
Cool. Great.
One other thing while we have you here, Sid, the Board of Selectmen historically has gone to visit Thatcher's Island in Straitsmith. I was wondering if we could put something on the books at some point, like in September?
We actually could,
said no.
Because there's a large number of the volunteers who have been on Thatcher but not on the streets. So we'd like to get those out there. And there's a new thing called the DOSES program again, which is someone up in the tower who volunteers to be there for a period of time. Keep an eye on the people who come and go, answer their questions, and if there's a emergency problem, they can call down. Most folks haven't been out there yet. So in September, we are planning on running a couple of boats out after the tourists are done to take a look around Straitsmith, and you will find it not only renovated, but furnished, systems working, and a delightful spot.
Yeah.
Did you get together? Was it yesterday?
I'm sorry?
Didn't you have a get together?
There was a cookout for the volunteers from Thatcher.
Right. Nice.
Selectmen were not invited.
I'd like to request that it's a Saturday. I work Sundays, but if it has to be Sunday.
It's always
I'll take it.
Saturdays. Yeah,
Okay, good.
we always
Okay.
want
Yeah,
Saturdays.
okay. Saturday.
I'll try to remember this year.
Yeah, this will be fun. Okay, thank you, Sid. Any other
Thank
comments?
you.
Nope.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose. The motion carries 5-0. Let's go to action number 1, approve and sign fall town meeting warrant. Is there a motion?
I move that the Board of Selectmen approve and sign the September 9th, 2019 Fall Town Meeting warrant.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Can't believe we're already talking about.
We're releasing the properties, right?
Yes, so Mr. Chairman, I have the images of the properties. Did you want me to display those on the
Right
TV, or did you certainly?
Oh, right here, yeah.
Let me just get the
Just
TV.
hold that,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, so that people can see.
Hold that up, and then honestly, I think we should just put it on the website tomorrow.
Yeah, you can show it up.
So the first piece here indicates the rough locations. These are 2 lots on Woodbury Lane.
Yep.
So there are 2 parcels on Woodbury Lane adjacent to each other. There is a parcel that borders Phillips, Linwood, and Point de Chene.
Okay.
And there's a very large parcel on Straitsmith Way.
Great.
Wow.
So
look at the size
once,
of
once, if this were to pass at town meeting, we have the board could then split some of them, right?
Yes, so should authorization be received, we would then come back to the board and ask if you'd like to divide any of them. If there are any existing, which I believe there are at least one lot, any existing trail easements or anything of that nature, we would certainly maintain that, and that would be added into the deed in the process, so we didn't lose any of those rights.
Can we make sure that we put these on the website, so there's been a lot of chatter of
So
people
it's in the warrant.
I know
think,
it's in
which
the
is-
warrant,
well,
I get that,
so-
but I want to make it as publicly available as possible.
So I would, respectfully, I would say it should probably just be in the warrant for now, because there's not permission to sell them yet. I don't want to over-advertise these things if
Right,
they're
and
not
the-
ready to be sold yet.
But as soon as town
So,
meeting acts
I
on
still
it-
think that we should tell people which parcels we're considering. Doesn't mean that they have to buy, it just means that they're up for consideration, because that's been the talk, that's been the chatter. Just tell
Because of
people
that
what it is.
Gloucester Times article that basically
Because
said
he
that we're
incorrectly
selling
listed,
them.
he incorrectly
So
said we're
what if
hiding
under
it.
the town meeting, what if under the town meeting
We can put
tab,
that
if
on the
you-
town meeting tab, if
Right, if
that's
you put
helpful.
this on the town
Yes.
meeting
As long as they're
tab,
available
we can-
somewhere,
we can
somehow.
cop-
Yeah.
and we can share the
That's
link
fine.
to
I think
that.
those maps would be great on that
Yeah,
tab.
I think that would
We
be
can do
really
that.
Separate
helpful.
one.
Sure.
And then we can, just clear up that,
Yep.
that the DPW facility is not contingent upon selling
Correct.
those lots.
It is not.
Right.
Correct.
It was the
Which
previous.
Monica has been fighting the good
Yeah.
fight on
and-
Facebook.
And it was the previous money we had in the real estate.
Correct. This would simply
bank.
replenish, but there's no,
Great.
this to get that.
Great, okay, great.
Very quickly, please.
All of those lots have sewer connections?
I-
don't believe Statesmith does.
Straightsmith does.
Straightsmith
That's
does.
actually the one that I know very
Yeah.
specifically has sewer. The others, I'm not positive. I don't want to assume.
Woodbury,
So, yeah, I'm not positive.
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
I would assume Woodbury probably does.
Oh, yeah?
I think
Because
probably.
the one
I-
past
I'm
it
not
does.
positive.
Yeah, yeah, there's.
I know Straightsmith does because it was part of our DPW laid the.
Yeah,
the
and Woodbury
material
isn't
down.
the end of this, there's, it's
Okay,
a whole
okay.
neighborhood past
The
that.
beginning of the cul-de-sac.
It's the beginning.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And that'll
I'm not
all
sure.
be
Okay.
explained.
So we'll put the maps up, and Mr. Chairman, just, I'll just quickly outline what these are. So Article A is the usual unpaid bills. Article B is any transfers that are needed for the budget. C is the report of Community Preservation Committee. D is the transfer into the reserve accounts for community preservation. E, first through
That's you.
sixth is the community preservation projects. F is the ratification by town meeting of the first year of funding for the police department collective bargaining agreement. G is the ratification of the first year of funding for the two AFSMI units, the supervisors and foreman unit and the general unit. H is the debt exclusion article for the public works facility. I is the permission to sell the properties that we just discussed. J is an amendment to the spending limit for the Council on Aging revolving fund. K is the disposable food serviceware article. L is the balloon reduction article. M is the plastic water bottle reduction article. N is the change to the Historic District Commission, changing it to 5 full members and 2 alternate members. O is the transfer of funds between borrowed projects. And P is the permission to seek special legislation to exempt the police department from the civil service law, Chapter 31, based on our agreement pending ratification with the police unit.
Okay.
On P, does that require any additional action if ratified at town meeting after the fact?
It needs to go to special legislation.
And then how long does that process usually take? Any idea?
That's
Is
really.
that where we get Senator Tarr and Representative Ferrandi
Yes, they would
involved?
file it on our behalf, and it could be, so the last civil service one we did, I think, took about it was either 6 or 9 months
Okay.
to get through.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Mitch. Let's go on to number 4, which is a sign permit.
Did we vote on that?
Oh, we need a
We
vote.
need to vote.
I'm sorry. All those in favor say aye.
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 And I need to
Opposed?
I need to abstain from Article P.
Okay.
You can't.
Well,
I just
you
do
can't
one.
on one.
Abstain for the whole.
I just
need to
abstain,
for
yeah,
the
just
whole
abstain.
Okay.
Oh.
So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And 1 abstention. And 0 disapproval. Did you have a question?
I wonder if I could just say a word.
Actually, this,
Yeah,
It's not the time.
this wouldn't be the time right now. We're just trying to get through this.
Okay.
Thank you. Sign permit approval, Cove Hill Residence, 37 Mount
It's a
Pleasant Street.
special election.
Special election, oh, I'm sorry. Special election for October 15th, 2019, number 2.
Want me to
Is
do
there
it?
a motion?
Sure. I move that the selectmen call for a special election to be held on October 15th, 2019, and direct the town clerk to carry out all necessary and proper tasks to effectuate this order.
Okay, you've heard the motion. Is there a second?
second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
For the DPW debt exclusion?
Mhm.
I heard
Sole
about
article.
that. Yeah, good. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, 0. The motion passes 5-0. And now we're going to the sign permit approval, Cove Hill Residence, 37 Mount Pleasant Street. Is there a motion?
Cove Hill, sign permit, Cove Hill Residences. I move that the Board of Selectmen approve the sign permit request for Cove Hill Residences at 37 Mount Pleasant Street as submitted.
Okay, you've heard the motion. Is there a second?
Second?
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
I just have,
Sure.
Mina did hand me a photo of the current sign, if anybody cares to look at that.
And this
It's really similar to
Yeah, it's
the-
nice that they're keeping it the same.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Yeah, it
They're
is
doing a
nice.
beautiful job with that
Yeah,
property.
they really are.
Have they been sold already? I haven't even seen it.
I don't know if they have, I'm not sure. I know the only reason it's in front of the board this evening is because it exceeds 6 square feet in the residential district.
Yeah.
There's no issue beyond,
Yep.
beyond that.
It looks
Pretty
exactly
straightforward, it's
like
very
the
nice.
same size that
Yep.
was
Yep.
before.
How many units all total?
Are
Is
there
it
3?
three?
One
It's
on
3.
each floor, I think.
I think it's 3.
Yeah.
3.
Okay.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it looks great.
Yeah, it does.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. And the motion carries 5-0. Okay, let's go to under 4, letter B, Addison Choate, 49 Broadway. Is there a motion?
I move that the Board of Selectmen approve the sign permit request for Addison Choate at 49 Broadway as submitted.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
Looks great.
It's great too, just like the old sign.
Same thing?
Yep.
Yeah.
Just bigger than it's allowed, I would recommend approval.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 0. Then the motion carries 5-0. And unanticipated business or announcements? Does anyone have anything? Hearing none. Our next meeting is
27.
27, a week from, 2 weeks from today.
Yep.
Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
There is. So moved.
It's moved and seconded.
So should Paul
All those in
sign
favor say aye.
Aye.
Very good. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.